Welcome back, everybody. This is Mark 159 of Geeks Chasing Squirrels across the multiverse. It's a big multiverse, a lot of area to travel, so we are covering a lot of things. We have a return co-host, Sarah, from last week, returning. We're going to get some thoughts on Black Panther. We got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, but man, let me tell you, I personally started my Game of Thrones watch. I don't want to say rewatch, because every time I post it, somebody's like, oh, you're rewatching this? No, I'm watching it for the very first time. And let me tell you, we're going to talk about it.
First time.
Oh, Ross, you told me, you said, don't rush through it too quickly because you only get this first experience one time. And you're absolutely right. I've actually watched season 1 twice, and I've watched half of season 2 twice because, me and my wife work separate schedules. So when she watches something, I've got to catch up to her. Then whenever I do it, she's got to catch up to me. We just end up watching the same things over. But it's cool because this show is so good. We can talk about it. But I'm going to get into that. Game of Thrones is later. We got a lot to talk about. Ross, what's up, buddy?
I don't even know. I mean, thank God you hit the button because we were already talking and already jumping on massive squirrels right off the bat. So.
Yeah, we started the show before it started.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, we're not live, y'all.
Yep. I'm happy Sarah's back. Sarah,
yes.
Missed you last week.
Sorry, guys. Sarah's I needed back. To recharge. I had a travel week, and I was tired. I mean, I literally laid on the floor, like with a pillow and my blanket, and I was OUT. I didn't probably wake up till like what I talked to you guys, like 7ish or so.
I thought you were ignoring me. To be honest with you, it was so long. It was like, oh my goodness.
No, dude, I woke up at 10:30. I was like, oh, I guess I need to go to bed now.
You need a charging station like B2 EMO. Is it B2 EMO or B2 EMO? Like, what do I say?
Well, it's EMO, but EMO.
Okay, so I can say B2 EMO. It's not offensive.
It's like 3PO and C3PO and
sure.
Whatever.
That's the charging station you need, though. That or the tank. Like, what's his name has? Boba Fett has.
Oh, yeah, the battery tank.
Oh,
that's the way to go. Yeah,
I'd be there for a second.
One of those, man.
You get no tank.
Yeah, recharge. Well, all right. Well, hey, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, but let's catch up on some stuff from last week. We had a big show last week with the Black Panther review, and I didn't get a chance to hear Sarah's thoughts on it. And honestly, we haven't talked about it all week. Like, we communicate quite a bit, but we haven't talked about it all week long. So I have no thoughts from Black Panther from you. So for everybody else, me and Ross, what do you think? How'd you like it?
I liked it. I really did. It was... You can obviously tell it was a labor of love for Chadwick Boseman because the way they treated, in the beginning they went straight for it, and the way they treated that, I thought that was a really awesome way of treating the character as passing. But Shuri, it's like a Shuri story, and obviously we're doing full spoilers, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But it was a really interesting way they kind of the way the story was handled with Shuri, because it was, you looked at you were familiar with the nobility from T'Challa because he was very noble, wanted to do the right thing, this and that. But I really appreciate the fact that Shuri kind of took on, it was like science versus tradition, and that was something that was really interesting. And and how she kind of handled that. Not wanting to really be, because I'm telling you that little girl, she took a lot of hits in this movie. She took a lot of hits. I actually went and saw this that Friday at noon. I actually took my son; he had the day off, so we went and saw that, and I think he kind of like maybe had teared up a couple, like one or two times, but he appreciated how they treated or handled T'Challa as well. But it was the one, I'm trying to think about what really stood out to me.
All right. Well, you want me to ask you some questions?
Well, here? It's like in retrospect,
questions.
As a parent, the one time that I teared up myself, I think it was the fact of when the Queen, and her name escapes me right now, but it was after her passing, and then when Shuri actually saw her, and it was kind of like to help her, the greatest thing about being a parent is for your child to kind of make the best, make the choices that you've kind of raised them to make. And so for Sherry to finally like realize that, like, like all this hatred, all this, whatever, her mom has taught her, it's like, you just got to do what's best. You be you handle it the way you need to. And, it's just kind of thinking, because, and plus I had my son, he's over here and he's watching all this, seeing how like mother, daughter, that kind of thing. And he's like sliding it to me. He told me even a couple times, he's like, Mom, I love you. I'm like, oh, are you actually feeling a little bit of
Thing, right?
It takes a Black Panther movie for you to say it. Okay,
I know,
got
right? I'm like, but then also to see, when she actually, drank the flower or whatnot and saw Killmonger instead of like, her
The heart-shaped herb.
The herb. It's the herb.
That's the heart-shaped herb.
But right. For her to see Killmonger, that was really interesting too, I thought. Because like I said, I think it kind of took her apart where she's not her brother.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of glad they didn't really put her and T'Challa like in the same vein. Kind of let her figure out her own thing.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting. But Namor's backstory, that was really interesting too, because you had the colonialism, the colonization, all that kind of stuff. You really kind of looked at like how indigenous people had been treated. So I mean, it was kind of like a history lesson. That was really interesting. I'm trying to think what else. Those are like the things that really kind of stood out for me from like the get go.
Okay.
Well, but also I could also look at this. I could see this as a standalone movie. It's kind of like the way I feel about Joker. If you took out anything that was like DC related, for me, I think you could take out anything that was Marvel related, and it would still be a fantastic movie.
Agreed. I mean, it's definitely stood out. It was a good enough movie to stand on its own. Luckily we have this whole universe it's in. So let me ask you some questions that me and Ross talked about last week that I wanted to get some thoughts on. What do you think of Ironheart?
Honestly, I don't really know who the hell she was. I'm not gonna lie.
Look, I don't know who the actual actor is. Like Riri, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is. The same way I didn't know who Megan Thee Stallion was in Hulk, and it's okay. I'm okay with that.
Well, it's just the character. I'm not.
I'm okay with being out of that world. Like I'm not in the hip world.
The character's not even 10.
I'm a dad.
Well, it's not just that. I didn't know. I'm not familiar with Ironheart, the character. Period.
Okay, yeah, Ironheart. Okay. I thought you meant the actress that played her. Okay.
No. I mean, I'm
not familiar with Ironheart. 2016. Yes. Brian.
I thought
Michael
it was
Bendis.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like with she was an interesting foil to like you're listening to everyone in Wakanda speak and act a certain way. So now you're actually taking them out of their bubble and putting them in like the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So you're actually interacting with, normal everyday people. And I thought that was kind of interesting, especially how she and Shuri kind of like, just were like, okay, we're cool, because Shuri's like, well, let me talk to her because I can kind of like, maybe fit in a little bit better, especially you got McCoy, and she's like, I'm not playing. I'm coming in. I'm doing my thing. It's like, it is what it is, which I loved her in this movie too. Okoye, I thought she was fantastic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's fantastic and everything.
Yeah, and the fight scenes, oh my God. I'm like, whoa, that was some hardcore action. I loved it.
Well, and that was one thing we talked about was there were some fight scenes in this one, but it almost seemed like it was the majority of it was saved for the third act. And there were some, for me at least, there were some issues with the fight scenes, like not necessarily the choreography or the actors playing it, but just like the pacing was what got me. Like for a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, we really realistically only get a few minutes of fight scene,
but they're pretty epic. I mean,
they are, but like we talked about it last week. Like there's the 15 minutes that the last 15 Wakandans are held in the corner of that ship at Spear's End, and it's like, well, at some point in time that would have ended. Like they either would have been killed or pushed off the edge. They wouldn't have stood there for like 15 minutes. So that was, for me, that was kind of like, but beyond that, like everything else looked pretty good. I just, I have little quarrels with every movie. This is one of the ones with this one. Was the third act for me was a little wonky.
I definitely think that the second act was a lot better. I thought, like I said last week, that the action with I like the moment from when they went to go get Riri to the time that the attack on Wakanda was over. Those were my moments. I thought that was the best action in the movie, just because as much as I like parts of that last battle, the second act just was. It felt more fluid to me. Like it felt more natural in the progression of the movie. What they were trying to tell. Namor comes out and he's trying to have almost like a not like a vengeance plot, but like a strange like revenge arc. And what I didn't like about his arc as much as I did Shuri's is that his felt immediate. It felt like it happened right now because they took Shuri. Right. So it was definitely a tough one just to try to figure out.
But I will say this much about the final battle is, to me, it just felt so like overwhelming stakes. Like it was kind of like, you have movies where it's like a trilogy type movie where you have like the first movie is like the beginning. The second movie is like the dark, bleak, that kind of thing. And then finally third movie is where everything works out in the end.
Right.
And, I'm seeing this battle. I'm thinking, how in the hell are they going to get out of this? Because it just seems like they were just overwhelmed, because you're going up against another nation and another type of people that are pretty much on par with what you have. I mean, their technology is just as good, if not better than yours. Mm. And, I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, how in the hell are they going to get out of this one? Yeah. So I guess to me, that was more of like the over the top comic book type feel, whereas like you said, like the middle act was more, yes, even though it was still high stakes and, you're battling three instead of like the whole freaking their army. I mean, seems like it's something that was a little more digestible. Yeah. But that last one, I'm like, I'm just sitting there like, I haven't really felt like on the edge of my seat for a lot of these movies. For that one, I did, because I'm like, how are you going to get out of this one? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. So, I mean, it did invoke a lot of more emotion.
Yeah. The stakes felt like they were comparable. Like yes. you brought up with them still having, their own version of the heart-shaped herb, and it felt like the whole way for them to make that real was to make the stakes, like, to shake faith. Shuri was already shook.
Exactly.
You lose a family member, it's always like an earth-shattering moment, and then you turn around and you're trying to find out like how to be okay with that. And she's already struggling. She's got her mom trying to help her out, but she's not willing to accept it yet. And then out of nowhere, comes, was it Talakan, whatever they're calling the place. And, they have all the same powers. And it's like, well, then are the things that we hold sacred so sacred?
Mm-hmm. Like questions that. Yeah.
Who are we? So,
what'd you think of the blue people? Did you like the look of Namor's horde, his entourage?
It was interesting. I kind of did like because initially I thought it was like, what is this gonna be like Atlantis? That kind of thing.
Oh,
my son swore up and down.
Which did you like better?
Well, I mean, to me, I felt like it was a little bit more believable, because I'm like, if you've got people that, it's like underneath the water, you're, breathing in, bringing in oxygen that way, but then out of the water, you do have some kind of
That's different... my beef. I got one with that. Go ahead, though.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's like that fantasy element. It's like the fantasy element that I kind of appreciate, to where it really sets certain people's apart. But Namor, that was just an interesting character unto himself. Especially the fact that he said he's a mutant.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I did pick on that.
We have to establish one thing though. Is it Namor or Namor? It's like it's like Lex Luthor and Lex Luthor. I say it different ways all the time.
It's Namor, but you can say it any way you want to. I mean, like it's always said in the comic books and everything else. It's supposed to be Namor.
Namor. Okay, got you. Yeah. So okay, Ross, where's the beef? You said you had beef that I want to hear.
All right, they made they made it apparent in the movie when Shuri was talking to him, assuming she was talking to Riri when this was going on, is that she was explaining how to take Namor down, and it was to take him down through like basically like roasting him,
Dry 'em out.
sucking all the water. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Sauna.
the whole point is that he breathes through like diffusion, like osmosis, like like he's able to like water just passes the oxygen through them, and then, like for him it gives him power, but does it work the same for the other ones? I mean, is his whole entire group, is that whole underwater species, are they still pulling water out through diffusion also? Because then the water masks don't make sense to me, and I'm sorry, they looked cool, but they didn't serve a purpose, because if they go outside of water, that's when they turn blue. And if they turn blue because their skin's not able to diffuse oxygen out of water because there is no water on their skin, where I was only trying to figure that out because it didn't make a whole lot of sense. They left it very, very gray in the movie.
Well, it wasn't until like towards the end or whatever you saw, they're breathing through here, but yet they had the gills here too.
Yeah.
So some of it you didn't really see all the water where it would come across everything.
If you have gills, then why do you have a mask?
Look, Ross, I'm not gonna lie, man. I love that you explained that, but if you would have said one more scientific word, I was off this train because I wouldn't have understood it. But you explained everything very well, so it worked out.
Maybe it's just the fact that when they underwater, you are absorbing all of this. Maybe it's when they're out of it, that's where there's some kind of reaction within their skin.
Yeah. That is what I have assumed since watching the movie from the very first time. Because there are parts that I love. Like I love the fact that they use the siren angle where they come out and they're they're making their songs. Nice I loved all like the guttural like throat music that they had in this thing, because sound is an enormous thing in dead spaces like water and space. Like sound does not exist in space unless you make it happen. So all of these things are just like real eye-opening to me. So when I saw them pop out of the water and they were blue, I'm like, okay, I saw them in the trailer, but why are they blue? And then they had their little underwater, scene where he's sitting on his badass throne, and everyone's not really blue. Mm-hmm. Everyone's pretty much in color underwater. So all of that's the only way that I can make that connection was through those things.
Well, then again, it might just be a dramatic effect somehow to set Namor apart from his people, whereas like you said, he was like he wasn't really the same as them.
And so why? That's a big why for me too. That's an enormous question mark, because in the movie, the only thing that separated him was that he was already a species born, like conceived, and then his mom ingested the herb, and then once all that was done, he comes out totally different with feathers underwater
on his ankles.
Feathers.
Yes. Now, these are all great questions, and I mean, every movie is going to pose these type of things, especially when we dive really deep into it. But White Chocolate Espresso has a question here that I asked last week as well. Does the suit heal, or does the power of the Black Panther heal you? Because I don't care who you are, man. When you take a 1-inch diameter rod through your vital organs,
that's going to do some damage. That's going to be hard to repair.
Yeah, you're not going to survive that, man. Like it's just not. It's not. But once again, I don't know. Does she have healing powers? Because if she has healing powers, couldn't you say then too she's a mutant?
Well, so that's the whole superpower thing with the heart-shaped herb that they've gone with from the beginning. Because the Black Panther suit wasn't nanotech or whatever they want to call it. When T'Chaka and T'Challa wore it the first time, it was a suit. Like it was something that you had to actually put on. And so when you turn around and you take the herb, like what is that? I don't know how much it's supposed to help you versus how much it's supposed to kill you.
Well, because really, Shuri, when she upgraded the suits or whatnot, it was more so to absorb power and to create it,
the kinetic
kind of like
suits.
turn it back around. Yeah, like a kinetic suit.
But you didn't see that much in this movie, at least.
No, you saw her taking all the brunts, and every time that suit would flash purple, that was basically it charging.
Okay, I must have missed that.
Yeah.
White Chocolate Espresso raises a great point, though. Didn't Killmonger die from being stabbed? Isn't that how he died? So why wouldn't the heart-shaped herb save him then? Even though,
it's just like even with
to be fair, it wasn't his heart. It was
when
that
he
hard.
got knocked down, when he got really bad off, I mean, that's what they used the herb to pretty much heal him. Like when he fell off the, basically thought he was gone.
I think that I might be sawing on the branch that I'm sitting on, to be truly honest with you. Like, I think I've got to just kind of let some things go and just go. Like, beyond the complaints that I have for this movie, this is a fantastic movie.
Right.
It's an absolutely fantastic movie.
I was really impressed. Really impressed.
I personally don't like it as good as the first one, but it's still a phenomenal movie. So, Sarah, I wanted to ask you that question
I
last.
disagree.
Okay.
Well,
we spoke about it last week.
Like I said, I've got different viewpoints because the first one, it was about T'Challa. The second one is about Shuri, and I'm like I said, I'm glad they didn't take Shuri down the same path that T'Challa went down. Even though he lost his father, he still had a lot to deal with, that kind of thing. But I liked her story. I liked the way because she was had more, like I said, like the scientific. She was about the science. So for her trying to understand the faith with the tradition and that was really hard for her to understand. That was really hard for her to accept. But T'Challa, that's what he embraced that. He accepted that. It's just like, he kind of picked with Shuri with like her scientific, things, especially like with the suit, that kind of thing. So, I mean, they're two separate stories. I mean, it's still the same family, but I'm really glad that they went the way they did in the second film. And I think, I don't really know if I have a favorite.
Okay. And that's fair too, because they're both really good movies.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing I have to ask you about it is, what did you think of the suit? Because, I mean, there were some differences beyond
all the suits. Let's just go ahead and talk about all of the suits.
Yeah, there you go. We'll talk about all the suits. But beyond the booby armor, there was some differences, that was obvious in there. So,
you got to have it, dude. I mean,
you got to have booby armor, yes, of course.
I can't even deal with that argument right there because I'm sorry, a female form, you can't squish them down if you have them. I don't care what's going to happen. You've got to accept it.
Why is it offensive that females have breasts?
I don't know.
Why is it offensive? It's so
where
crazy.
did that even come from? Because I remember seeing
I
that
don't
and
know.
everybody was like losing their mind. I'm like, until you deal with them,
Right.
quiet. You
Right.
don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just going to put my foot down on that one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's some days I'm like, I wish I didn't because they're a pain in the ass. I'm sorry.
It's so funny. There's some days I wish I did. It's nuts. I don't know why. It's crazy.
You'd get tired. You'd
I wouldn't
get
get much
tired of it.
What do you think of the suit overall, other than that, though? Other than the booby armor?
I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it was because that's what my son kept talking about. Because like trailers and all this kind of stuff. He's like, it's gonna be Killmonger. I'm like, no, dude, it's not. It's not. But I thought it was interesting that it did have the gold on it more so than the purple. I thought that was interesting. So I don't know. I think it was fitting. I think it was pretty fitting.
You think it's kind of gray Jedi-ish? The fact that with Killmonger's suit was the gold one, right? So like she saw Killmonger in the planes. So like maybe the gold suit is her kind of being like, well, I'm Batman, so if I need to kill, I will, because that's the way I roll.
Well, and that's the thing about it too, because she had a lot of revenge. She had a lot of vengeance. I mean, she was like, I'm gonna kill this son of a bitch. I don't care. Well, we don't do that. She's like, well, I'm about to, because that's
totally justified if she did. Yep.
Absolutely. And that's what she kind of the morality she wrestled with. And I thought for certain I thought for certain, especially when she took Namor down and just basically turned him into like a pretzel. I was like, just ruined him like a sponge. I was like, okay, she's about to get real. So, that was another thing that was interesting about her story arc, because I think at that point is when she kind of, accepted, okay, this is really not who I am. This is not how I was raised. This is not how I was taught to handle things. It's like, I can be mad as hell because, I mean, really, who wouldn't want to choke somebody, when you feel like you've been wronged? I mean, hell, I've been like that for the past 4 weeks.
Sometimes
you're going to be like 20 years.
Yeah. Work has been just, but anyways.
This story part of me, and this is the way my mind works, like wanted her to kill Namor right there. Like for this story, it would have made this story for me that much better. Like, oh man, that's justice.
But is that why you like Killmonger better?
Possibly, but for the sake of the future of the MCU, I like Namor as a character. I like the actor who played him. And I want to see this character in the future. I wouldn't want to see him killed off after one movie.
But did you guys
You know,
have an
so-
issue with how quick he folded?
No, because I think that he kind of let you know at the end that there's kind of a reasoning behind that.
Another end game?
Yeah, I mean, he even told like his servant or whoever it was presented herself, and she said, you know, why would you fold? Why would you bend knee to these guys? And he basically said, he's like, one day they're gonna need us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like one day it's gonna happen. So he's just playing the long game. I think it was a smart move.
Well, it's kind of like at the same point too, because Sherry, you know, that's one of the reasons why she was like, "I'm not going to join you to like burn everything down," because that's just there's more to it than just a knee-jerk reaction of like wanting to burn the world down because you feel like, or because you've been wronged.
Right. And honestly, I don't think Namor wanted to burn the world down up until, you know, a certain point. Like that wasn't the mindset. I felt like he was being pushed around too much. Which
they were perfectly happy until, you know, Wakanda got everyone involved. When Wakanda came out, you know, they essentially pulled out. Is it Tulakan? However you say their place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, basically, you know, by default they got yanked out with them, and you know, even though he could sneak around water in ways that doesn't quite make sense to me yet, I've you know, they have the whole symbiotic relationship to where, you know, what affects one affects the other, and you know, they're all figuring that out. So he wasn't clearly really ticked off until, you know, Wakanda came out, but then even then he wasn't ticked off until Wakanda didn't want to play ball with him. And so when the Queen was like, you know, your strife is not mine, then it became an issue for him.
All right.
I know. I will say one thing, Queen Ramonda. That scene with her in United Nations, I was like,
"Yep,
that was an ultimate mic drop right there." I mean, that just really, wow.
I saw that bit too before the movie came out, and I was like, "Oh, I can't watch anything." That's when I gave up. I'm like, I'm done watching anything about this movie until it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Damn it! I had something on the tip of my tongue I was going to say about this movie that I wanted to ask a question about a moment ago, and I forgot what it was.
Well, stick with the suits while you're thinking about it. Like you had, so not only that, you had what was Midnight Angel?
Oh yes,
yes, that was interesting.
What'd you think? Did you like them?
Yeah, I'm gonna shut my mouth real fast. I'll talk about them all at the end.
No, Ross, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sitting with this movie for a week, I've come to like the suits less and less. I mean, the Midnight Angel one was already a little weird for me with the. It reminded me of things I've seen in animation. It reminded me, you know, of a mashup of other things that I've seen, and it didn't like stand on its own really for me because the bug eyes and the predator hair and like everything else, you know, it was real weird. And then not only that, but the way the mask actually popped off, like, you know, faded away whenever she took it off. The Black Panther suit to me was a little too. I'm a fan of the original suit. I like the suit that he showed up in Civil War. I like, you know, the real suit. And I think that was kind of one of the things that turned me off to the Black Panther, the first movie. It just felt like they were transitioning to a more advanced MCU. And like, so they were using Black Panther with trying to say that, you know, our technology is the best and blah, blah, blah. And how it, you know, Shuri's so super smart and she made all these things. You start bringing in more silver, and then of course like the more purple with the kinetic stuff, so on and so forth. Not that big of a deal, but I just like the original one better. And so when Shuri showed up with her mashup, I was a fan of it looking at it because like it all made sense. You know, like you hit it on the head. Same thing I said with the Killmonger deal. It was, even though it was a brand new suit, it was way too polished for my liking. I don't know why. I don't know what.
But I think it suits Shuri.
No, it does.
You got to think about it, what the suit, who it's for, and I think that's probably another thing because, you know,
Greg talked about detail last week with the dots in the face. No, it was all her. Like it was hers. Don't get like I'm not rubbing anything of her on that. Like it was definitely hers. It was just that the more I think about it, the more that I picture it in my head, I was less and less of a fan of it.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that it's not a showstopper by any means. It's just
Right.
that we have like costumes are a big thing in the costume universe.
Oh, yeah.
So thinking about all of them with the Midnight Angel and then Ironheart was the
Ironheart.
other one.
Yeah.
Which Greg, did you look at those photos that I sent you last week of the Ironheart
I did, and I like it a
behind the
lot
scenes
better.
stuff?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
I like it a lot better. It looks a lot better. Now, and that's my thing too. Like, we're talking about it's basically 3 suits. It's the new Black Panther suit with Shuri. It's the I keep want to say Iron Angels,
Midnight Angel.
Midnight Angels. Okay, I want to say Iron Angels, Midnight Angels, and then the Ironheart suit. Of those 3, Shuri's obviously the Black Panther. I think was by far the best. Like it looked great. Like it had slight modifications to it. I didn't dislike it at all. It was just a different version of the Black Panther suit, and I thought it looked great. I'm not a huge fan of the other 2. The Ironheart suit for me looked too Disney. It looked too Big Hero 6.
Yeah.
That's the perfect way to describe it. It looked too Big Hero 6 for me. Now, you showed me the pictures of the show where the suit is different, and obviously she at the end of this there's a reasoning why at the end of the show she said you can't have the suit, which honestly seems kind of dumb anyway. But she's like, you can't have the suit, and the only purpose for that is to show that she's going to make a new suit for her show. That suit is looking better. I like that suit from the pictures I saw. So we'll see how it looks live action. I mean, it's hard to have an iron suit like and make it look good. So,
and not only that, you have, they live in a universe where an Iron Man suit exists. Like.
Well, see, that's all I could think about. I'm like, is she going to be like Tony's replacement or something? Not his replacement, but if she can kind of take that niche where he is, because she's like she's like super smart when it comes to mechanical engineering and all this kind of stuff. And
yeah,
I mean, you just build a suit like that too.
I think they're bringing her in for that.
In here,
Yeah.
I love that scene. I don't know why a lot of people hate that scene. I love it.
I think they're bringing her in for that, though, is to kind of replace Iron Man, which is fine.
Or like just kind of fill that void in essence, because I mean
Right.
that's all I could think about. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is some Iron Man. Is she gonna be like the next Tony? I mean, what's going on here?
I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. I didn't really recognize the character. So,
well, I'm interested for the show because I think it can turn the character around for me. Not that it needs to be like I didn't hate the character or anything, but I think it can really make me love this character. Like I can go from I like this person to I love this person with this show if it's done right. So,
and I'm not sure where it falls in, like in the big scheme of things, like with Armor Wars and everything else. So I want to see what they're going to do with it, because you have to imagine that Rhodey's going to be involved somehow.
mm-hmm.
He needs to be. Yeah,
right.
Definitely needs to be. And the thing is, you look at all the Iron Man suits that we've seen on theater. I honestly like the first suit, like the first Hot Rod red suit, the original one in Iron Man 1, the first one he painted. I like that one the absolute best out of every one of them.
Not that it was truly practical, but the fact that it looked more practical suiting up. Like if you look at, they have those YouTube videos where it's like, every Iron Man suit up ever, and you watch them all. Like it gets cooler as you've watched it over the years, but you always go back to that first one. That first one is so good.
Mm-hmm. Look, that first one I can make almost identical looking, minus the firepower and the flight and everything else. If I just want to walk around, I can make that suit, and it looks fantastic. So I remembered the question I wanted to ask, because this is big, and I didn't think about this last week. So generally, when it comes to the comic book world, Marvel always gets the first drop on everything, and DC follows. So with DC, it's like, well, do they copy what Marvel did, or are they going a different direction? And generally, it goes a different direction, and we've seen where they're at now. So this, however, was different. For the first time, DC has the first underwater world, as opposed to Marvel. So Marvel now has to have an underwater world with talking, swimming, and everything else. And it's always going to be compared to Atlantis in Justice League or whichever movie you look at, Aquaman. So what do you guys think? Did you like the Atlantis version of the underwater world better, the swimming, the talking, or did you like I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of his city. I should have looked it up. But do you like his version better?
pretty sure it's Tulicon or whatever it is. I think that I'm going to tell you right now, I'm still not sure that I've actually watched Aquaman all the way through. And
Oh man,
I
you
know,
should.
I know.
I hear. I'm like that with Guardians of the Galaxy too. No,
Yeah.
it happens.
Like the bubble scenes, I'm not a big fan of. I don't like them making their own little bubble to have a conversation. Like I wish that they were, because like
That was only in one movie, I think.
It seems like that was a little bit more adaptive. So which that wasn't in the Aquaman movie.
I don't believe so. Well, no, it was in the Aquaman movie in one scene. I think about it. They did go to space. Yeah.
And like I don't think like much of that is truly necessary. I mean, it is if you start bringing in people who aren't, part of the underwater world or whatever the case may be. But you're right. There is no way not to compare it to Aquaman because it did come first, and that has been the subject matter of so many articles that I've seen come across the screen. And I'm like I understand it because, it's constantly the conversation going the other direction. It's constantly, everyone's comparing DC to what Marvel's already done. And, rightfully so. I don't think that one matters over the other.
Yeah.
To me, personally.
I get that.
From what I've seen about Aquaman, I am extremely discouraged, though, that we don't get the next Aquaman movie until the end of next year. Like, it's more than a year off.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll see what happens. We have no idea what's going on in DC right now. God. Sorry. That was, different kind of rant.
I don't want to get off on a tangent because the only news that I've read has been DC news this week. So
yeah. Well, Sarah, what do you think? I know you've seen Aquaman. Did you like Atlantis better, or did you like Talokan?
Talokan? No, was it Talokan? Yeah.
Talokan?
I like that better. To me, I felt that was more realistic.
Really? Okay.
The whole idea of if you live in an underwater world, live in an underwater world. And the whole thing with the Aquaman, with Atlantis, is you still lived in like these air bubbles. It wasn't like you were really living. I don't know. It just seemed it was more realistic. I mean, if I think of like
be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just some of it like with the. It was a little more reaching because, like I said, it just didn't make sense. It's like, oh, we're going to create this air bubble, but then again, you could be on air. You could be on land or you could be underwater. So it was you're still sitting like on both sides. Whereas with Nemours people, they were literally underwater. They could not breathe air. And also, I'm kind of looking at, because I was trying to find out what exactly the place was called. So I come across this little synopsis that says, remember the plant that his people drank? That's what turned them blue.
So it did actually turn them blue?
It actually turned them blue.
But then why was not everybody blue?
Well, here's my question to that. Did it turn them blue because they were on the surface and they needed to get to water?
Yes.
So when they got to water, they turned back. Yes. So that was basically the moment to where it changed. Because that's when they drank that, and then that's when that plant was found underwater, right?
Yes, because that was the plant that because it was made of vibranium. Because it had vibranium or something in it.
Yeah. But it's so weird because if you find it on the Earth's surface, then you can breathe air. But if you find it underwater, then you have to breathe underwater. It's so weird how. I mean, I draw the connection. So get it wrong. I don't know. It I don't want to say it seems cheap. It just seems like a really plausible explanation to arrive to just by making it grow somewhere else.
I get that.
Well, different environments, create different, type of, situations.
All right. So I want to counter this point. And I understand what you're saying about, and especially White Chocolate Espresso in the chat about Marvel did it better and the people look cooler and this and that. I get it, but I say these two things. The biggest complaint we've had is the air bubble. From what I've seen, both of y'all mentioned the air bubble. Both scenes in both the Justice League and Aquaman that's in has Amber Heard in it, and her power is water manipulation. So if I can talk to you through water with
That's not what the court said.
or I can talk to you normally, which am I going to choose? So I will say that. And two,
But that's the other thing, right? Like, why would you talk like that?
if you don't, because if it's look, if me and you can communicate like this and it works, we do it, right? But if it's always something else that's harder and it's the only way we can do it, or not the only way we can do it, but like the easier way to do it, we're going to do it. Like you generally work with whatever's easiest to do, even if it's a little more difficult. But even that, it wasn't more difficult. But I will defend Marvel slightly with this, because there was only maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes of underwater scene in this about the city underwater. Aquaman was an entire movie almost about Atlantis and being underwater. So it was slightly different. Like they had to invest. They had to invest a lot more into Atlantis. Yeah. Now, that being said, I do like Atlantis better. I'm a DC guy, but not even that. I just like the way it looked better. However, that doesn't mean the way they did Marvel looked bad. I think it did a great job. I just didn't think it looked as good as Atlantis. But I also haven't dove into the city. You know?
Question: do the Atlanteans, are they able to go above water?
I think certain ones are, some are, but the ones that aren't have the mask on that have the water in it. So I don't know how much of Aquaman you've seen, but there are certain ones that have mask on that can't breathe air.
It was like the soldiers, like when they had the soldiers come on land, they were the ones basically that had the suits. But anybody else, like main characters, they'd be fine.
They had no problem. That's what I was trying to figure out with, the only way that I could come up with why Namor was worthy of like a mutant name was that he was, just genetically different, than the rest of all the other ones. And the only way that you can say that is that he was born that way versus the other ones that were turned that way. The Atlanteans would have to have the same kind of like thing, right? So if a couple of them are able to go above water, then you start bridging that mutant gap right there in DC. So I knew enough about this movie with what they gave me to make sense of most of what they were trying to tell me. Like it wasn't like a super far stretch to get to it. And I know that Aquaman was on in my house and I kind of walked in and out of it and saw parts of it, but I never understood any of the rules behind it, I guess the best way to say it. And Justin Lin, I knew he had to kind of make quite a bit of quite a bit of changes just to make it translate well to film, like onto the screen with what they had written with the screenplay and everything else. And so I don't think his calls were bad. I saw a bunch of the behind the scenes stuff with him trying to describe it and them do like a little docu thing about him making the movie. But I still never really felt like I'd had a firm grasp on it.
There. I'd recommend checking it out. It was better than any Squad movie. It was better than the Harley Quinn movie. It was better than...
It was a lot better than expected.
Let's put it this way. On my rankings of DC movies, it's just underneath Wonder Woman. So my top 3.
I feel like that's
just underneath
what she said joke. So I'm just going to say that's what she said.
Yeah, but it's a good movie. I mean, you should check it out. But once again, I say that, and I still have yet to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2 from beginning to end in one sitting. I've seen the whole movie, just not in one sitting, because I don't know why, man. I just can't do that movie.
You might as well watch it, because you know what we're about to get this week.
The Christmas
Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special.
Oh my Lord.
This actually excites me. I wouldn't mind seeing this. It's fun. We'll see what they do with it. But do we have any news on it?
Kevin Bacon in it. Come on.
That's what I'm saying. That's what sold me on it.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon is kind of a selling point.
I will watch Aquaman before Aquaman 2 comes out. We have my word.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Is it on HBO? Surely it's on HBO, right?
I'm sure it probably is. To be honest with you, I haven't watched it in a while. But look, Aquaman's one of those movies that, like, when I talk to people about it, they either absolutely love it or they're just like, it's kind of a Green Lantern type thing, you know. And you know I
Yes,
love
on
Green
HBO
Lantern,
Max.
so just saying. Same
What'd you
movie,
say,
though.
Sarah?
It's on
Same movie,
HBO
though.
Max.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, Black Panther
Even the
actually,
cartoon.
even the cartoon. There you go.
Yeah. Actually, who voices Aquaman, the animated character? It's a big name. Uh, you're on there, so you go ahead and check it out. But I will. I remember when they were talking about that this person was going to play Aquaman, and I'm like, wait a second, they're recasting Aquaman, and then it like took me like a few days to understand that there was actually going to be an Aquaman animated show to come out, and I actually watched the first episode because I love Harley Quinn. The Harley Quinn show is funny as fuck. I mean, like for anyone who's not on that, jump on that. But when the Aquaman show came out, I'm like, oh, is this going to be in the same vein? Because I'd be all about that. Like there would just be nothing but inappropriate wet jokes left and right, but it wasn't.
No. And White Chocolate Espresso says an octopus plays drums in Aquaman if that helps you want to watch it. Hey, that octopus is in the comics. That's all I can say. I don't know if he's playing drums in the comics, but that he's in the comics. So
Has he
that
got the
is
massive drum set? Is he like
slightly comic book accurate.
was it the one armed man from Death Leopard?
Yeah, kind of. Well, look, Black Panther had me in my feelings. Like this movie was a tribute to Chadwick Boseman. It definitely got me in my feelings. But I'm not gonna lie, I saw it last week, and since then I've seen Game of Thrones, and it's totally taken me out of my feelings for that. Like there are no stakes when you compare things to Game of Thrones. There are no feelings when you compare things to that. Like it is insane. Why did nobody tell me about Game of Thrones the last 10 years it's been going on? Seriously.
I don't know. I mean,
Like,
apparently, you need these things. They're called cotton swabs or Q-tips, if you want to use the commercial name,
I
so that
guess,
you can
man.
get the shit out of your ear and listen to the rest of us.
Look, man. Okay, so House of the Dragon came out. We covered it. It was great. Sarah, and I will tell you, if you liked House of the Dragon, you'll love Game of Thrones.
It's those dire wolves. I'm telling you. You start taking out dire wolves.
Well,
I got to
okay,
push through that. I got to push through that.
I've only seen. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything, but
Don't say anything.
you should definitely check it out. But I would highly recommend doing it the way I did. See, everybody else watched Game of Thrones, and they had to wait for episodes to come out and go all
because
these
you're doing a
years to find
machete
out what's
order.
going
You
on,
want to do to tell everyone
Me
they're doing it
personally, I get to binge the whole thing in 2 weeks. And not only do I get to do that, I got to go in with House of the Dragon knowledge and Fire and Blood. I read that book. And now I'm reading every chapter of Game of Thrones as the show goes on. Man, I'm telling you, it is a fantastic way to go into this. I envy y'all for having that love for this when it comes out, but at the same time, I really don't because I am enjoying this so much. Ross, you told me not to do it too fast because you only get the first time once. Man, I'm telling you,
Yes, you
listen.
did.
I have already watched season 1 twice.
There you go.
Yeah, I've only watched season 1 twice. I've already watched season 2, the first half, 2 times. Like it's that good that I would go turn season 1 on again and be okay with it.
Dude, when every season of that show came out, we rewatched every episode, every season leading up to it. So, I mean, season 1 and season 2 were different just because I didn't think I jumped on the show until maybe season 2 had come out. But I think I was like deployed or something. And so like when I came back and, it's on air and I'm like, what? Ever since then, when season 3 came out, we watched season 1 and 2. When season 4 came out, 1, 2, and 3. And we just kept on doing it and doing it and doing it. And still to this day, I've told myself that I'm going to go back and watch it again too. The problem is that show's so good that I have to do it when I'm not like, when I have time to pay attention to it because I can't not give the show attention. And I've said it for so long. And even though that you haven't been listening, it's the show is fantastic. And it went on for so long. Like I'm hoping that House of the Dragon gives you the same type of vibes it does for the characters that were in Game of Thrones. But I haven't felt it yet because we went through 3 different renditions of like each character. And I understand what they're trying to do in House of Dragon. I understand how they're trying to move the timeline around and progress the story super fast. But I want characters to sit with. I want characters to live with. And in Game of Thrones, you get that. In Game of Thrones, you get you are on the ride with these people as time goes on, and time doesn't start getting real funky in Game of Thrones until the later seasons. So the first, I always say 4 or 5, fantastic.
He wrote the first 5 books. Yeah, and then after that, it was all show writers. After that, you know, I was. It's so funny. Nathan, me and him were talking about Game of Thrones today, and dude, Nathan loves Game of Thrones so much that when I was texting him, talking to him about it, he couldn't text me. He had to call me. We talked for like 2 hours on the phone today
Oh God.
about Game of Thrones. Both of us just working. You know, him doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. We're both just working, talking about Game of Thrones. Like this show is absolutely amazing. I love being able to see, like I said, of course, there were people who probably read the books before the shows came out, but for the majority of people who watched the shows, that wasn't the case. You know, so it's so cool going into the first season I want to say Lord of the Rings, of Game of Thrones, and they talk about all these stories about Viserys and the death of the dragons and all this stuff. And I know all this stuff going in. So I have such an advantage going into the show knowing all this stuff. Now, however, there is about a 160-year gap that I want to know about. And there are a few books on it, which I'm going to read because I'm going to dive totally into this universe. I love this universe, man. This is phenomenal. I stopped myself from cussing twice there. This is phenomenal, man.
Are we supposed to stop that? I didn't know that.
Well, no, you don't have to, but I just did. I don't know why. Let's put it this way. I was upset when I got home that I had to watch Andor, which is a fantastic show, and Peripheral, which is a fantastic show, because I couldn't watch more Game of Thrones. That's how good this show is.
It's a high, dude.
It's crazy.
Literally a high.
It's all I've thought about all day. I listened to like 5 hours of the book. I'm into chapter like 6 of the first book, and it's not even past the first episode yet. But it's so cool because I've watched the whole season twice. So now, like when I listen to the book, I can see everything they're saying perfectly, and I see all the stuff in the book that wasn't in the show, which is phenomenal. Because everybody always says the books are better. Yeah, they do have a little more information generally. There's things they skip in a lot of shows and movies that aren't as good, but are still pretty good. But there are a few things that don't make it bad, but it's like, oh, it's cool to know that, like the Jon Snow name. How you know Jon Snow's a bastard? How not only I know, but how everybody who meets him knows he's a bastard. Well, they mentioned that in the House of the Dragon and Fire and Blood, but they don't mention that in the show. But they do.
You know that comes from real lore, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like that was a big thing in Europe, and so just like my last name, the first 4 letters of my last name mean that I'm a bastard of another, like of the O'Patrick family, and so
I didn't know that.
All of that, or of the Patrick, is what it was. So like in Ireland, and that's like a real big thing, and so that comes from full live lore, like our like historical significance to that. So it's was it Kevin Smith just did a sit down with R.R. Martin and at his new movie theater, and was talking to him, asking questions, and how he always gets the thing about, are you how much do you pull from history, so on and so forth. You can't help but pull from history. Everything is pulling from our history. That's what makes it grounded for us as people to actually watch these things.
Yep.
And it's until you start adding dragons and other things, like it's a purely relatable world to live in. It just goes a little bit hardcore on the fantasy and certain things. You will reach a point though, whenever you get into the later seasons, there is a character who also plays in Andor from Game of Thrones. Well, be good. Don't look it up.
No.
And then when you get there, let me know who it is.
There's one thing I don't want to look up that me and Nathan were talking about today. And he asked me, he was like, do you know who Jon Snow's mother is? And I know in the show, they tell you who Jon Snow's mother is. In the book, they do not. Okay. And what Nathan told me today was Martin actually, when he was looking for the showrunners for the to run this, they read the books and he asked them who is Jon Snow's mother, because you can figure it out in the books, but it never directly says it. And the ones who actually got it right were the ones he picked to run the show, because they understood the book the most, he said, which was cool knowledge. I didn't know that. And I don't know how true it is, but I have no reason to not believe it, so it sounds pretty cool. I like it. So I don't know that at the moment. Ross, I know you've seen all the shows. I know it sucks because I can't read the books as fast as I can watch the seasons. So I know that I'm going to find out in the seasons before I try to figure out the book, but it doesn't really bother me that much because I'm not a very smart guy. So I probably wouldn't see it in the book. Like it probably would pass me, especially if like he was picking show writers to pick this stuff out. I probably wouldn't have figured it out in the book. So, but they do say they never actually say it in the book, but they do allude to it, and there is clues, and you can figure out who it is. So I'm interested to find out who it is. Don't tell me yet. It'll spoil it. If I find out in the show, I find out in the show, no problem. But man, it's so cool because like it's one of these things that like two of my friends love Game of Thrones and this world, right? And I never had HBO. I didn't not watch this stuff because I didn't want to. I just never had HBO, until HBO Max came out. So now that HBO Max came out, cool. I'll watch this stuff. And it's one of the things that like my wife actually, when she gets off, she's like, how far did you get? Because I'll watch up to that episode, or I'll watch up to that, or two past that. Then you can catch to me and watch two past that. And we watch it together. It's really cool that this show brings us together like that. It's just, let's put it this way. I've never seen anybody say anything bad about it. Be it beyond the way it ended. But like past that, I've never seen anybody say they didn't like the show. That's watched it, say they didn't like the show. And Sarah, I'm telling you, I was the same way. Just pound through the first like 3 episodes, and then like Peter Dinklage will be your favorite actor ever.
Well,
ever.
Like
You'll be
I
like, oh my
said,
God, I never want to see anybody act again. This guy right here.
Best phrase ever. That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
Yeah.
Well, my thing is, I've got to have a certain mindset because when I got through the second episode, I was in tears. So
we can help you out with that.
Yeah.
There's just certain things. I have just certain triggers that it just once the floodgates open, it's hard for me to close them. So it's like I just have to be in a certain mindset to see that. It's like people find you bring animals into it.
Be prepared because I know exactly what you're talking about. And yes, this show has no limits, and that's what I love about this.
You can take people's heads off. I mean,
this
hey,
show
you can
has
cut
no
them in
limits.
half. You can do whatever. You can skewer them. Hell, roast them. I don't give a shit. But you brought animals. It's just like even with House of Dragon, you will start taking the dragons out, which I know eventually that's going to happen. People can fall off. Hey, I can get over that.
Just look away. Just look away. Okay. Mm-hmm. Animals will be hurt. And
see, and that's
and not just animals. I will say there's some more things that you're going to look at and be like, oh my God, I can't watch this. But
well, it's just like case in point.
There's a whole lot more you haven't even gotten into.
That I haven't even got to. Yes, but just where I'm at in the second season, there's stuff you look at and you're like,
slow down. I'll try to rewatch it. We'll talk about this.
When people were talking about the birth scenes in the House of Dragon, that didn't faze me.
No,
everybody's like, oh my God, this is so awful. I'm like,
I'll watch that any day of the week. Any day of the week.
It's a shock factor
compared to what I've seen.
Screen is what it was.
Yeah, compared to what I've seen so far. And that was one thing I told Nathan too. Is it's so funny that this made me think of it. The production value of House of the Dragon is so much better than Game of Thrones. However, he told me, he was like, wait till season 3. He was like, season 1 and 2 was their like footing. Then after season 2, everybody loved this show and it became like the best show in the world. Then they get all their money and things change. So I'm excited to get there. But I definitely noticed a huge difference in production value from the first season and so far the second season of Game of Thrones to what House of the Dragon gave us. Now, and Nathan even told me, he was like, there's this is not huge spoilers. Tyrion, Peter Dinklage's character, goes to a war, and at the beginning of the war, he gets knocked out. And the reason why they did that was because they couldn't afford to pay for a full battle scene in the first season. So you just knock him out at the beginning of the battle, then you're good to go. And I was like, okay,
but then you make it to like season 7, and you're like,
right,
what the hell?
Right. So, White Chocolate Espresso says, have I got to Ramsey yet? No, I have not. Where I'm at right now,
I don't think Ramsey shows up until into season 3, season 4, maybe.
Okay.
Which
I will.
No, there's. Damn you, Greg!
I know. I'm telling you, man.
There's so much I want to talk about and bring up, but I don't know where you're at.
I'm telling you, Sarah. Where I'm at right now, I'm in Carthage. with Daenerys.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
This. Oh, so
and
you saw? Oh, you got past all the Momoa stuff.
yes, I'm
And you
past
got
all the Momoa stuff. I'm in
you got the
Carthage
Golden
with
Crown.
Daenerys, and I am in.
I've heard about that. That's one
Let's
thing
see.
I want
Grey
to
Lord
see.
has gone back to. Grey Lord is with his father, and
Greyjoy.
Greyjoy, yeah, not Grey Lord. Greyjoy is with his father, and I'm trying not to spoil things for
Oh, it
Sarah.
must be
Trying to
season.
give,
Ramsey
trying
might
to
be
give.
season 2 then.
I'm halfway through season 2. Yeah. So, well, I'm not gonna say anymore. Sarah, I'm telling you, you're gonna love this.
Did you get to
There's not
Joffrey
too
yet?
many. There's not too many spoilers. I mean, I know
Well, it's
quite a bit about
it's
it.
a 10-year-old show. Yeah, that's true. So, I don't know,
Did you
man.
make it to Joffrey yet, Greg?
It depends on what you mean because Joffrey's been in a lot of episodes. Like, do
That's
you
See,
mean
that
the
name just
episode?
makes
Do
it's
you
just
mean the
cringy.
episode where he makes the
Period.
2 hoes or whores beat themselves with bedpost and?
Did you make it to that
Nope.
episode?
I did.
All right. So is he in charge?
I think no. Tyrion's still in charge. He's the hand right now. So I don't know if
Tywin?
Joffrey's come of age yet. So
You talking about Tywin the Dad?
no. Well, Tywin the dad, yeah, he's the hand,
Oh,
but Tyrion
yeah.
is the sub, yeah, for him. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it's phenomenal.
Man, now I wanna
I'm
go back
sure
and
that I'll
watch
probably be done with this entire series in like 2 weeks.
it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, you gotta slow down and savor it, man.
Well, and it's like I said, I'm reading the books as I go, but the thing that sucks is like I'm probably gonna stay up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching 2 more episodes when we get done with this. You know, like me and my wife woke up at like 4 o'clock this morning because it was still playing and it was episode 5. And guess what? We both woke up and we couldn't get back to sleep. So guess what we did? We restarted episode 5 and we sat there at 4 o'clock in the morning and watched for episode 5 because why not? It's there. So it's that good. It really is that good. Like I went to sleep last night with it playing, watching an episode that I already watched, wondering what was going to happen next. And then I woke up and it was a new episode, so I had to watch it.
When you get to the episode and you text me who you think is the character that plays in both Andor and Game of Thrones.
Okay.
So let me know when you start to get into that point. I do believe that there should only be one.
It's not Forrest Whitaker, is it?
No.
Okay. We can eliminate that one. All right.
But I mean, Sarah hasn't watched it yet, so we're going to have to move on.
Oh yeah, holding back. I'm holding back, man. Sarah, I know you. I know the stuff you like. Well, I know the stuff you like. Let's put it that way. I think you would really like this if you just said, screw it. I'm gonna spend 4 hours and binge the first 4 episodes. After that, you'll be like, okay, what happens next? I've got to know what happens next. So, that's the way I'm.
Let's talk about the things you don't like. Are you a Titans fan this week, Sarah?
Ooh, that's a good segue.
Were you a Titans fan last week, Sarah?
I have a love-hate relationship with that show. I love it, but then I'm like, what in the hell are y'all doing? It's like, what? It's just okay because I watched last week's episode. I think probably it might have been Saturday night because I hadn't watched it because, like I said, I just basically fell off the grid. So I watched that and then was like, what the hell is going on? This is some weird shit. And then
That was the Jinx episode, right?
yes,
Jinx?
yes. So I'm like, just you turn Corey to stone. What the hell is that shit all about? I'm like, that
And
just
then
came
this
out
week
of
she's
nowhere.
like, when I was stoned. I'm like, who says that? You say that when you're high, not when you literally get turned into stone.
Yeah, and I'm like, that was just kind of weird. And then this episode, I'm like, what? Yeah, and the one scene, I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, okay. So yeah, these writers, man, they're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. I mean, this is a little crazy. This is a mite crazy.
Yeah.
What
This
is
week's
going on
episode,
here?
I was watching it and I was like, what the fuck am I watching? like
What?
seriously, like I love this show and I love these characters, but like this was just a jumbled mess. Like I don't understand what they're doing this season. Like it started out strong. First 2 episodes, I was like, hell yeah, let's go Titans. And then it's just been waning since then. Like, what is going on with this show, man?
Last week's episode was really, really weird. To a point where I'm like, I think I might watch this some other time. Like, I'm not really interested in it right now.
Mm.
I literally sat in front of my computer yesterday from like 8 in the morning until like 10 o'clock at night. And then, like, when I got done, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to zone out and watch some TV real fast. I was inebriated probably more than I should have been, but I'm going to tell you right now, watching this show, I was on a level to where I'm like, I don't know if I like this, if I'm interested in all of the weird things that they're doing, or if I'm so confused that I'm
You
just
have to keep
saying to
watching.
myself that I'm liking it. Yeah, like I don't know what I'm feeling on the inside yet, right? And
I'm
so
kind of like that too. Yeah.
I heard, they opened it up with, it was the '90s scene, and so I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm like I was a '90s kid.
Yeah.
I don't remember 90s. 96 did not look like that.
No, I didn't think so.
It
I'm like,
didn't look like
this
that.
oddly feels somewhere way, way back. Way, way back. Like, well, either way, I literally said to myself, how does 1996 look so old? And then, but I was sitting there trying to figure out what Homegirl's power was. She was basically just watching them. Like, she was just witch, just fixing stuff. Printer fixed. This is happening. Dude's yelling at me. Dude's jumping out a window. All of a sudden, like, we're all good. And she's having to do like TPS reports and shit. And I'm like, where are we bringing
they
this in
actually
from?
say TPS reports?
Yes.
When they did, I was like,
Well,
they didn't just
no,
do
they
that.
said TPS, like annuals or whatever she was calling it. But
Yeah,
I'm like,
it was like in that
TPS
same
reports.
vein. I was like,
yeah.
oh my God.
I was like, where's my stapler? Where's my stapler?
That would be great.
But trying to, here's the thing, like, that whole arc with that character, she's like, I'm done with masks. And I'm like, you're obviously done with eyebrows too, because you don't want eyebrows anymore. It was interesting seeing the backstory, but it was done in a way that I didn't ask for and wasn't quite ready for.
Right.
And so it felt completely out of place. It felt like that would have done very well going into actually next week's episode, because I think, what did I say? They're doing 12 episodes, so they're splitting it up 6 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
So this was episode 4. So next week's episode would have been the perfect time to kind of dive into this, because we don't have enough plot to what is currently happening.
Yeah,
and that's what's ticking me off quite a bit. I don't feel rooted in this season yet enough to go back and find out where she's from and what she did.
It's just like when they were talking about the asylum. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Am I supposed to remember this?
And I oddly remember just a little bit about it, but not nearly enough.
No.
Well, it's cool they called back to prior events that have happened in this series. I like that. It's just that, like, I'm not going to lie, I'm starting to get that kind of Arrow effect where I really like the actors who play these roles. Man, seeing them on screen and action scenes is phenomenal. The costumes are great. Love it. But the storyline's kind of losing me a little bit. Like, and once again, it's the 4th episode of 12. So there's a lot to come still. But I say this about other shows when it happens. It's just kind of like I'm watching this and I'm like, what am I watching? Like, I don't see. It feels like they're trying to have too many threads to the story. Like, it's give me a story about Titans and a villain and let me fight them.
It just doesn't feel like a team up. It doesn't feel like Titans. It just feels like a bunch of folks just running around and just saying, oh, we're just in. Yes. Because, I mean, Corey, I don't know what's going on with her. I'm just like totally disconnected from her. And then you've got Connor. I don't know what in the hell's going on with this dude. I mean, I know he had his own episode where he was trying to figure out, daddy issues and all this kind of stuff. And then you got Tim Drake over here. I'm like, dude, what in the hell are you about to do? You're like
Tim Drake's trying to play with the staff.
I'm like, you're like the biggest liability they have right now. And then you got Rachel. I'm like, what in the hell happened to her? Did she get her power sucked out? I'm like, I'm just thinking, what are you guys bringing to the table here? Because you're just like, just people, just regular people running around.
But that's what this show is always like. This show is always like a disarray of Dick barking orders and not wanting to be a team player, but then claiming that he's the team player, and then trying to do all these other things. And so I keep getting lost back and forth with like, are you the Titans, or what are you?
It's like it's just a band of misfits. I mean, that's just it's just people.
Which I expect from Doom Patrol, but I don't want from Titans.
Yeah, exactly. I want Titans to be a little bit more.
Well, here's the
put
problem
together.
they have.
I mean, there's I don't know. It's,
Well, one of the biggest problems they have is they have Superboy. You know, and like even in this episode, there's a scene with Zombie Deathstroke.
The hell?
Where I'm like, okay, the idea of Zombie Deathstroke, whatever, I get that. It's cool to see Deathstroke in any way, shape, or form, even though Manu Bennett was by far, hands down, the absolute best. It's cool to see him, but it was like Superboy could literally handle this without question in 2 seconds, not even 2 seconds, like if he wanted to. And they get to a point where he's like that. He's like, give him the nod. He goes and does it, knocks his head off. Cool. Then he puts his head back on. They're still shooting. I'm like, why wouldn't you just send him back out there to rip every part of his body off? Like, just send him out there to kill. Like, you know how to kill him now. Go knock his head off again. Smash the head. Rip the arms off.
How many bones are in the human body?
Exactly,
all those bones and separate them.
So I was looking at that and I was like, I don't really know about
it's
that.
It's the magic element. I think that's what it is. You've got this magic element that's. I mean, to me, this feels more like this series is getting more into like the horror-esque. It's more like a horror genre because you're bringing in this magic that, you know, like Dick says, he's like, I don't like magic. I'm like, okay. Anyways, I'm like, this is
right.
Who does?
I get it, Batman. You don't like
then
magic.
For Jinx to say that to Superboy and be like, Superman's afraid of magic. He just always tends to, disappear every single time something magical happens.
And he's just some snarky shit like that. I'm like, really?
You can't put that in his head and then all of a sudden, boom, true. Like, I know that he wasn't born yesterday. He was only born like 2 months ago. But what the fuck? Like, what are we talking about here? I don't.
Yeah.
You. Nope. I'm good. I
can't.
I can't do it.
Look, I just need more to grasp on this show. Like I said, I hate not loving what I see because especially the first 2 episodes are great. This show is the most hit or miss show I've seen since Arrow. It's the only show that I can look at and one week be like, this is phenomenal.
Awesome.
And the next week be like, what did I just watch? And Arrow was like that
quick.
toward the end. It's like, and I don't want that. Like, but I get it. Maybe there is an expiration date on the stories you can tell with certain characters. Maybe if you try to go so many seasons.
There's so much you can do with this.
You're right. There is. You're absolutely right. But there's so much they could do with it.
Yeah.
But what will they do with it? Like, quite honestly, you could split the Titans up for all I care and give me a Beast Boy show that focuses on Beast Boy. Give me a Superboy show that has Superman in it. Give me a Nightwing show that has Nightwing in it. And you know what? Give me a Starfire show. Because, hell yeah, why not? That actress is phenomenal, and she plays that role great. Like, for me, that right there is Starfire. I will never, ever look at Starfire any other way in my life. When I picture her, that will be the image
as
for me.
Starfire,
like Tony Stark.
As
It's like, what's his name? Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man. Like, that is my Starfire. Like, there will be no other.
Some bold words being said tonight, folks. Some bold words.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's I think, but I'm not sure. It's the only live screen portrayal we had of her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, it's the best one, but she just does such a phenomenal job. Like, it's amazing. Once again, this show is just.
But I'm gonna still watch it. 100%.
I'm gonna still watch it because I love the characters.
I
love the suits, like I said, and it's one of those things that I may watch next week and be like, "Holy shit, this is great!" And all these episodes make sense, but it may not. Like that's the thing with Titans.
Well, and so like this week, like with the Sebastian angle, like trying to figure out. Last week they pull him out of prison and they take him, and then all of a sudden this week, like he's okay to sit by the campfire and have a conversation, with his supposed sister is what we're going with, right? Like that's what I'm getting as Raven and him are siblings of some sort.
That's what it sounds like they're going to. Yeah.
And then he's in the RV, and the next thing you know, like him and Raven are going into the back door of the asylum, like together first in front of anyone else. When you have Superboy,
right?
And then you're gonna turn around and stay with him for 8 hours, and you're gonna catch up in a room that you're not supposed to be let out of. I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just enough there to like make me question, why are you trusting this guy so fast? So out of nowhere, I guess is the best way to put it. And then like what's it gonna take? Like I don't feel like the opposing argument to have as to why you don't let him rush to be a friend so fast is that he's going to screw something up extremely fast, which is probably not going to be great for a story.
Right. Well, the problem they have with Titans is the same thing you have with any Superman story, the same thing you have with Superboy. I guess if you're going Marvel Sentry, the problem you have is when you have a being who's has limited power and like there's only very, very few things that can defeat them or even affect them. How do you write villains for them? How do you make them not just be the guy who rushes in and saves the day quickly every time? You know, because you want to have these characters included, but it's tough to include them because, like, realistically, if there's no kryptonite, what can't Superboy do? Like, he may not know how to fly. He may not be as good as Superman.
Take a dagger, apparently.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's tough to write that. You know, so I would hate to be a guy who wrote Superman or wrote Superboy or, once again, Sentry from Marvel, which I wonder if we're ever going to see. Like, are we ever going to see the blonde-haired Superman? Like, seriously? Like they're doing Civil War. They're doing, what's the Secret Invasion? Like,
which rumor is that
new Avengers, man. Throw Sentry in there. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
New Avengers. Let's see what happens. But yeah. I mean, I just
don't really know what to say about Titans right now. I really don't. It's
I don't
like
either.
I said, we're like 4 episodes in. You know, I felt like the first one started off strong. You know, the second one, yeah, the third and fourth one, you're like, it's getting a little weird. But
third, I was off the train, but 4's a little weird too. You're right. Like 4's weird. 3 was pushing me like back to old Titan style. Like, did I say too much about the first 2 episodes? Did I screwed up?
It's like I enjoyed it too much. To where
Right.
it's like hey, it's a reality check. Y'all step back just a minute because it's still Titans. I'm like I said, I'm along for the ride. I'm just curious to see how it's going to unfold. I mean, because the Titans is always, you know, the season finale. Is it going to stick the landing? That's always the question.
They're doing the mid-season break this year too, so it'll be interesting to see. They almost have 2 penultimates, one next week. Look, Titans, like I said, it's suffering the same thing as CW. Is it fatigue? Is it you know, something we're gonna love? I don't want to not like this show, but I have to be fair about it. When it's not good, it's not good. I mean, I don't hold back on She-Hulk or anything else like that, so I can't on this. Like, watching this episode, I had about as much interest as everything past. Well, every episode of She-Hulk minus maybe the first one and the one with Daredevil. Like beyond that, it's about what I felt. I was like, I'm gonna watch this, but I'm gonna do something in the background while I'm watching it. You know, like, because I'm not really that invested in it, and I hate that. But like I said, I have to be fair. You know, I talk shit about other shows whenever I don't like this. I have to talk shit about Titans too. Titans is like this though. It pulls it's a roller coaster. It's up and down. It makes me love it one episode and then hate it the next. So maybe I just have to accept that's what it is with this show. You know, it's just going to be a hit or miss every week.
I mean, it's the 4th season. I mean, we hadn't figured out the first 3. I mean,
it's been
the first 3 were pretty good, minus maybe the finale.
Yeah, it's been a rough ride trying to understand what the overarching thought process is for this entire show. Right. And it's felt like patchwork. And so I'm hoping that what I'm worried about is that there's not going to be a season 5. With all the changes that they're making, I'm very curious as to what they're going to do. And not to say they won't use the characters. I'm just saying that I don't know if they're going to continue the show as it stands right now. With all the DC news, I feel like that they could do like a real big reel in before they start to create more product to put out to the people. So this definitely, and like the comment I made about Aquaman, the fact that it's so far off in the future that I don't know what's going to happen with any of it. This show exists right now. We get it. But like one of my main takeaways was that Titans even did zombies wrong. Like
I didn't even realize they were zombies, to be cute.
Me neither, and that's why I said they did
I was
them
like,
wrong.
what? Yeah. I mean,
when the people started coming out, I'm like, oh, so all these people that work at the store are like undercover, right? Like, like they're just sleeper agents or like whatever the case may be. Like I could buy all that. They're like zombies.
Like, just like mind, or she's just like mind controlling, that kind of thing. But I'm like, zombie was the
yeah.
last thing that I would have even.
You had to use the Z word. Okay, cool.
Well,
I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. That's gonna trend.
The chainsaw scene. I was like,
what a dull blade.
What are we talking about here? What's going on?
I'm sorry, that was stupid.
What a
it
dull
was. It was
blade.
totally stupid.
Like I could say wood faster and she cut through that neck. Are you serious? Like, get a new blade. Well, that was a chainsaw though.
Eyes. Use them eye beams, dude. You can take them right on off.
I know.
And why the hell do you need Dick's permission to go
to the Superboy?
Are you a freaking dog? I mean, what is going on here? I don't get that. That makes no sense.
I love Titans because of the characters give me and the way it looks. However, you give me a Brenton, what's his name, Thwaites?
Yes.
Oh,
give me him in a movie as Nightwing, and I will trade. I will you will never give me another episode of Titans. Seriously, I would trade the entire show right now to get him as Nightwing on the big
not
screen.
Just in one movie, but give me
like to be the guy to
yeah.
be look. If you're not going to do Batman, put Nightwing in there. It's the same effing character, man. It's the same damn guy, like they're the same person. So put Nightwing in there.
And
I don't know,
it's
man. Good.
Connor and the Snake, like
gross.
I'm pretty sure, like, dude, I don't even know.
I just want to say that there is absolutely no way you're riding around in that RV that can hold a car. And I don't even know what kind of car it is, but it's an amazing looking car. Porsche, okay. That can hold a Porsche, okay? And you're eating fucking ramen noodles. There's no way you're heating up ramen noodles in that RV.
They're kids.
There's no, I don't care.
I went with kids too. I was like, they're literally kids.
There's no way, man. Like I was looking at that and I was like, ramen? Really? They're just trying
balling on a budget, bitch.
No, they got no budget.
That's how they're rolling.
Yeah. But
they're still teen Titans.
Look, Titans will continue to go. I don't know what's going on with season 5, if there will be one. I would like to see, like I said, not just Nightwing. I could see all these characters being portrayed live action on the big screen. I think they all do a good job, but I would want them to all have their own like stories. Like I love Nightwing, but give me a Nightwing story. Like honestly, you can get rid of everybody else in the show and just give me a Nightwing story, and I'd be okay with that.
Superboy feels like that needs to be a coming of age story, and not just like in age, but like as in like maturity. I feel like you could do a majorly wicked Raven movie.
Oh yeah,
I think that could be something that would be one of my biggest interests, because you could go real dark, and I mean like for a very long time, especially if you had a character like the one that's playing her in this show, you could just carry that shit on forever.
Yeah, be like Constantine style Raven movie.
Mm-hmm. I have no love for Beast Boy. I
like the actor,
my best.
And I like the actor, and I like the way I can see him as Beast Boy. But you're right; they just haven't sold me on him. Like, what the fuck is this character doing?
It's been an ongoing thing that we've talked about every season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Corey can do her own thing. I'm more interested in, like you said, I want to see. I don't like Corey's like persona. I don't think it's any problem with the actual actress. I think it's with the writing, with the direction that she's given. But I think that it could be done a whole lot better. and now we get Jinx as the token friend all of a sudden, who's going to show up out of nowhere to be the Magic Queen. Like, I love how she was in this episode, where she just basically sat back and was like, all right, you guys can keep playing, play your game as long as you want to. And then she finally stepped up and been like, you don't understand how this works.
No.
You're a bunch of kids and you don't understand how this works. Move. And I got like major, not like mom vibes, but like, I'm in charge. You just haven't figured it out yet. Move. I need more. And I'm afraid I'm never going to get it from Titans. And I'm pretty sure this is not a phrase that I've just uttered for the very first time.
I think you may be right, man. To be honest with you, this may not be the show that delivers exactly what we need, but it's a foot in the door for these characters to be portrayed live action, if anything. So, I would take anybody who plays any role in this movie, in this show, and put them live action in a movie and be okay with it. But if you recast, I'm okay with that too. But I would like to see these characters in the universe in DC. However, I don't even think the guys who are in charge of DC know where the universe is going. So,
well, they said they're coming out with maps. So
happening. Yeah, they came out. There's a rumor.
They've also said they're going to make a Superman movie, and they haven't signed Henry Cavill yet. So
the article I sent you today, I think it said that they have a plan for Batman moving forward, but the whole article never stated a plan. It just said they have one. Like, even though Robert Pattinson's doing his thing,
what their plan
they have a plan for. It's like, well, what is it? Like,
that they're not going to use 4 Batmans at one point in time.
That's probably
that was the consensus of the whole entire plan. It's like, what we're not going to do is we're not going to make a bunch of movies about Batman at once. We may make 2, but we're not going to make like 4. I'm pretty sure it's what I read more than once this week.
I'm a Batman guy, but I'm totally fine with bringing in Batgirl. I'm totally fine with bringing in Nightwing. I'm totally fine with bringing in any of the Robins. What's the new Batman's name? I can't even remember, but I'm totally fine with bringing that in. Like, it's okay. It's okay to show that a guy is not alive forever.
Yeah, and I think that they should.
It's okay.
I think that's why you could bring the Robin and Nightwing and the Titan show over, and you can still make him. He's still young enough to show the babyface Robin, to be in an adult Robin to a Batman, and then to show that whole entire transitive arc. Just make the whole entire thing flow. Bring in another Robin. Bring in another Batman as time goes on. Show all of the scenes. Do all of that. Make that whole entire universe happen. Because that's what you need out of Batman. Because what do you keep getting? The same thing over and over and over.
Y'all have a plan right here.
I mean,
I am a man with a plan.
Right. Like, we talked about how DC needed to get their things together and have a plan. And then this week, we have a plan for Batman. So they obviously listen to us.
Yeah.
Like, they're definitely coming here for the news.
Reading between the lines.
That's right. Well, do y'all want to hop out of the Titans universe and talk about Spandor? Because I know that we weren't excited about the Titans episode.
Someone needs to talk about Andor last week. Because tell me that wasn't a badass episode. Before you go and talk about all the things that were fantastic this week, what did you think about last week's episode?
Go.
Those eyes. Andy Serkis's eyes. I mean, he could tell a whole story just using his eyes. Because even at the end of the previous episode, it was like, oh shit, it's on now. It's about to get real. And then that shit, that was crazy. That was just crazy how they just like overtook everything, and they were just like, yeah, we're done with this shit. And those guards, but I mean, Andy Serkis, he just 100%, just took the whole show. I mean, just that one scene, I was like, oh my god.
There were 3 in that episode that stood out to me. Mainly speaking of like his speech that he was giving, but like his whole entire time on camera. The other was Luthen, and him showing up cold blood and basically laying down who Luthen is. Mm-hmm. That talk on, once again, that wonderful breezeway with handrails. He got real serious, and he got real fast. And I thought that was very much a you need to see what the line in the sand is that makes someone want to join the rebellion, and make it known like what is too far to be pushed. And Luthen tells you, like, I'm in this fight, like I've devoted everything to this. Not only have I devoted everything to this, this is everything. And it was
see,
just
that's the
real.
moments that I need for this show. That's the
Yes.
moments that I need to like to really connect for it to like, okay, it's starting to sink in. You know, now I think we've got that build up, and now it's getting real.
Mhm.
It's like you're really starting to see the stakes. You're starting to see what, you know, what everybody's actually, you know, giving up in order to make this happen, to make this work. So that was really, like you said, it was like a line in the sand moment. I mean, it was like
heavy. It
yeah.
was it gave so much more dimension to Luthen, because what I hated was Luthen felt like he came out real strong and was powerful and had plenty to say. Then it felt like they really kind of benched him for a little bit, to where they were showing indecisiveness of the character. And so what I think that does is, you know, like confidence is attractive. You know, people are attracted to confidence. When you find confident people who seem truly confident and not like fake confident, it really is something that you want to be a part of, whether it be, you know, whatever level. Luthen felt like he was lacking that confidence, waiting for the Aldani mission to happen. And then, like, once all that, you know, went off, and then everyone was kind of in their places, minus Cassian being the X Factor, it felt like he was back in the game. And then that speech when he was talking to Lonnie, I think was the rebel guy's name, the undercover guy in the ISB. He basically came out and was like, here's how life is. So put up, shut up, get on board, choose one, whichever it may be.
Yeah, because everybody has stakes. Everybody's giving up something. What are you about to give up? I mean, that's just, you know, it's like pissing you off the pot. I mean, that's basically what it was it came down to.
I think that the bank robber one with the siege moment was one of those things too for him, where it's like, I'm putting everything into what I've got. If this doesn't work, then I still have the ability to step away. I can still do whatever I got to do. But if this works, this is real. This is happening. And it's actually in motion right now. And he has that realization. Like, it's that moment. It's like, this is not a thought anymore. This is actually going on. Like, it's my life now.
It's kind of like it's mob mentality. Like, you know, you're trying to think about how you're going to have an uprising. But in his regard, it's, how am I going to show power to power? How am I going to rise up against? And that was the moment where he put his cards on the table, and he gambled, and he came out big, and things worked out. And so they've done enough with playing random acts of terrorism, if you will, but, you know, that showed that they were able to actually do something when the time came along for them to prove themselves.
Right. All right.
The last one that I thought was real big from last week was Mon Mothma. That scene that she had with the Davo character, or Davos, whichever his name is, and when she was talking to him, and he was like, you know, I want your daughter to marry my son. And then you saw the face acting in that woman, in Genevieve O'Reilly. Like, I was amazed, because the way that she was choking up quietly, you could see it in her throat and her neck, and how, like, her face was just trying to fight back the disgust and the shit that she didn't want to do. I thought that was pivotal, because it was the lack of conversation that really blew that scene up. And then we move into this.
I felt her in that moment right there.
And this week's episode was Daughter of CLVIX, which I automatically believed that Mara was going to die. I did not think it was going to happen right off the bat. I didn't think we were just going to show up and she was dead. I thought it was going to be her drawing her line in the sand and making her one, like, contribution to the rebellion that we get to see. And then, like, she would die, but she was dead right off the top.
Yeah, which is pretty heavy too, because, like you said, you don't get to see that moment. Like, we left last episode, she was alive. We open this one up. She's dead. So, like, and the entire episode, I was watching this whole thing, and I was like, is Andor ever going to show up? Because I think he was in like 2.5 minutes of this episode, to be truly honest with you. This entire episode was about the other story going on with the Andor story, which I'm fine with, you know. But you do get that moment at the end, a little bit of well, I wouldn't say closure. Where he's basically calling in for his mom, and he's
Everyone knows the news but him. I think
right.
that's
He's unaware of what's going on. Yeah, and it makes it difficult. Like, how do you approach that person and tell them that at that moment? You know,
and it makes the trap seem real because everyone knows what's going on. Everyone but Andor. And so when Andor finds out, it shows the immediate passionate response to him, to where he's like, she died, and like, I'm coming back.
Well, is it a trap though, or are they just saying let things proceed as normal? They're
creating a trap.
Right?
They're letting it proceed because they know at some point he's going to show up because of that.
Well, they're letting it happen naturally, though, right? They're
right,
not necessarily. They're just letting things happen the way they should.
Yes,
and it's going to cause a trap. Yeah.
Yes.
So it just happened to work out for them that way.
But. Well, yes, but I mean, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying, but like they're playing off of they're making the best out of a bad situation is what they're doing. Right. And so yeah, I get what you're saying.
So y'all talk to me about Saul Guerrero in this one. Like, his whole issue with Luthen, and that argument is a phenomenal argument in the heat of battle, and when you've got to make decisions for people's lives. These are the kind of things you talk about. Like, this is the kind of issue, and basically, Saul Guerrero's not down with sacrificing a guy for the cause, right?
In the beginning,
right,
right. The fact that he is able to talk it out over conversation. You have to understand what they're really up against before and understand that not only what they're up against, but what little bit of numbers that they truly are. And so Luthen's thing has been to bring them all together to create the eventual rebellion, to actually create a force strong enough to combat anything that, a bit of the Empire.
Right.
And so no one is on board. And I think that this whole scene just shows that, it takes drastic measures to actually get to make drastic moves. And seeing it process in Saw's head is one way for us as like the viewer to actually see it happen. Because all of us can say, we know the Empire is going to end up fighting the rebellion. We know the rebellion is going to become a thing. We know that all these people are unhappy. We can keep dissecting it back to where they're currently at before we put it all together again for a new hope. But what good is that if you don't see the struggle with the actual people trying to come together?
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
You're seeing the sacrifice that they have to make, because I know they have small numbers, but it's like, Luthen's reasoning behind, that decision. I mean, that was pretty compelling too, because it's not the fact you really want to lose anybody. It's just, it's a chess game you have to play.
Right.
And, these are the pieces that we have to, move, or, the pawns you have to kind of sacrifice in order for you to keep everything moving forward. Because otherwise, if they know, I mean, it's basically, all over.
Right. Needs of the me type mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we to
and you got to see two tubes again. Not only did you get to see two tubes, but he played like more of a role in this show than he did like in Rogue One, period.
Who's two tubes?
He's the guy that Luthen took the gun from and stuck it up to Saw's
the
neck.
alien looking dude, or the one that was more of a non-humanoid.
There's actually two of them, and they both go by two tubes. They're brothers.
So I've pushed this show on everybody who hasn't watched it, and it's funny because I read an article the other day about how it's getting really low ratings, like people aren't watching it, but a lot of people I talk to are wanting to watch the whole thing in one sitting as opposed to watching episodes. So that could be the cause. We'll see if there's a big spike when the finale comes out.
I have that conversation all the time with people, and it always
Yeah.
comes back to what shows are worth streaming and what shows are worth watching week to week. We talk about shows week to week, and I'll be dead honest with you. My conversation always ends up coming back to the simple fact that Game of Thrones is like the what people watch week to week, and like that was the big thing week to week.
Yeah.
And much anymore, like it's tough for people. I'm going through the same thing with Peripheral. Like, if I probably sat down and binged that whole entire show, I'd probably understand it a little bit better than I do. And I've said that multiple times now.
We're gonna have to mention that when we talk about it because I'm right there with you. Yeah.
And so, like where we are with Andor, you say that, but I sent you that information from articles this week that over the Thanksgiving weekend they're putting it on all of their properties: ABC, Freeform, FX, Hulu. That may be all of them, but they're going to put the first 2 episodes out so that everyone gets a chance to watch them, no matter what they're like a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get that, but like, okay, so for Andor, we've talked about how Andor's so great because if you don't like Star Wars, you can still watch the show and love it. This was the most Star Wars episode of the series so far, just because of the space battle.
Dude,
No,
Yeah,
which-
we'll
we
get
talk
to
about
that.
that ship.
We'll get to
Let's
that.
talk
We'll get
about
to
it.
that. Hold on,
Well,
because
no,
you still
we're
got the damn it, what was I going to talk? Oh, I wanted to bring up Bix. I want to bring up Clea, and just a little bit of scene that what they actually had on Narkin.
Where they were
What's the name of the
captured?
planet? Narkina, I
where
think.
they were captured in the nets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with those two species and that little weird like web trap that they had, they bring in the quad jumper, which is another thing from. Really, it was kind of the first scene in. Oh my lord! Episode 7 was the first time it was seen, and so when you get to see the actual quad jumper, and you're like, okay, are they going to try to make it out? They're hanging onto a cliff. They're trying to evade the heck out of everybody. Melshi's over there like, my hands don't work, but like somehow he's still hanging onto the cliff. They just make a run for it, and they're having a conversation with these species, which one of those is from Rogue One also, I think. It just felt like desperation. And then I came to realize, a large part of this show can be summarized by the word desperation.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is making desperate acts. I love the conversation that Clea and Luthen had. I love we talked about this with last week's episode of Peripheral with the Bob character and his daughter. And so in Andor, you get the conversation between Clea and Luthen to where they're very secretive. They're talking in code, and they're doing it pretty dang well.
Mm.
Like, they're not skipping a beat. Like, everything that they're saying is basically like, don't go and do this. Well, there's one loose end I got to tie up. I need this person. I need their product or whatever he was basically saying.
We don't want another collector.
Yeah. So it was all working out very well. And then they jumped to Bix real fast. And, dude, like, I found it very weird that she had the doctor's voices in his head. I felt like they should have given us a taste of the noise from the dying children's species of that, thing that they were talking about.
Yeah.
The torture device. But Bix did this week what Mon Mothma did for me last week, and she acted through her face and like very few words. Oh. And if that didn't show you like desperation and torture and like everything else, I think it's fantastic what they're doing with. You guys watch Handmaid's Tale?
No.
All right, so Elizabeth Moss gets her face on screen, and when I say she gets her face on screen, she like gets her face on screen to where like it's almost like Blair Witch the whole entire time. It's disturbing.
Okay.
And what I love about this show is that they can do that with actors and actresses mainly, and it tells a pivotal part of the story that you actually don't get through dialogue.
Yeah,
and I love that.
Yeah, the emotion on the face is big. Can I go back real quick to the scene with where they're captured in the nets? And can I just say that, like, with all the technology and all the worlds and everything else, if you gave me a choice in weapon, a net would probably be one of mine. because I don't care who you are or what weapon you have on you. A net will at least distract you or mess you up for a couple of minutes, if not trap you indefinitely. You know?
I am partial to ray shields, and mainly because of Ewan McGregor's
Okay.
phrase of like ray
Okay,
shields.
Yeah.
How are we this, or what do we say?
Yeah.
How are we not this smart, or
Yeah.
whatever he said in that movie?
That's a good point. Yeah, but it just seems like a net always works. Doesn't matter what. Like that's one of the oldest forms of capture is in a
That
net,
was a
but it
slimy
always
net.
seems to work. That was a slimy net. That kind of reminded me of Fifth Element. I don't know why. Like I was like, that seems like something from Fifth Element. That net. Like,
Yes.
maybe the netting clothes. I don't know.
No, you're right. Yeah, I got you.
But yeah. Well, the last thing. Well, you had one more thing you want to talk about. That scene you talked about what were the two? I know the last one was the starship.
Oh, the Mon Mothma and Vel conversation. Vel shows back up real fast.
Very
And-
quickly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you start to get a large part of understanding. You're seeing the thought process happen in real time. You're seeing the
Right.
conversation that she's having. And so I think that it's very interesting how, once again, you're seeing the desperation of Mon Mothma trying to rationalize. But not only is she having to rationalize, but her daughter makes it super easy because her daughter's completely on board with all of these old ways, of the way that the world works for them.
Right.
And so it's almost like she's just waiting to be wed, which is so funny because she has such disgust for her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Lita is such a see you next Tuesday that it's difficult to understand how she can be so wrapped up in all the same ways that all this happened. I don't get it.
Well, I think she's tied to tradition, and for a female in that type of tradition, like being wed is a way to get out of where you're at. It may not be going to a better place.
You
but
want to
it's a
grow
way
up too
get out of
fast,
where
but
you are. Yeah.
here you're growing up too fast and getting married
Yeah.
forever.
Well, I don't know. There's probably divorce in Star Wars. I'm not sure.
Oh, there's probably more death than there's.
Yeah.
Divorce.
Yeah, you're probably right. But
Either way, you're gonna get the D one way.
that's right. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we have the finale next week.
No. Now we can talk about the starship because I
Oh,
know
yes, let's talk about
Sarah wants to
Starship.
talk about it.
By the way, yes, go ahead, Sarah. Talk about it.
Y'all can keep your Naboo's fighter because that ship, oh my gosh, it was.
I would
Was
say
that
I'll still
like
take a TIE fighter.
lightsabers? Please
I would
tell
say
me.
I'll still take a TIE fighter, but it took out like 4 TIE fighters, so I can't talk shit.
It reminded me of Iron Man 2 when he had the one laser beam he could use when he spun around and like sliced everyone in half. Like it was one of those type deals. Like you can only use it once, and it probably is not. It's like the most powerful thing that you have in your arsenal, but it's the most difficult thing to use. Period.
Yeah.
It was totally a badass scene.
Yeah.
I recognized that Star Destroyer from the get because I've had pictures of it saved forever. It's all the concept art of what the Star Destroyer was going to be like before they settled on the one they actually went with in A New Hope. That's what it was supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that they went with the one they chose. But at the same time, all of these callbacks to all of this concept stuff from the very beginning of Star Wars is fantastic to see.
Yeah.
Not only that, this made sense. Like they're at a point where they're really trying to understand communication on all these worlds to create the Empire. So to create one large ass governing body. How do you do that without making it, I guess, visual for the actual person watching the show? So when you are watching it and you see this thing with 3 dishes on it, you're like, clearly they're trying to like intercept transmissions. They're trying to get an idea of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then Luthen's ship.
Badass.
He was already, he's sitting there trying to plan this whole entire thing. And look, there's tons of ship scenes that I love in Star Wars. Just about with every type of ship. But for this ship to come out of nowhere, then to start shooting like
actual projectiles, not
Just
lasers.
yes,
Actual
like it,
projectiles. Yes.
right out the back, and then to take that captain off guard so fast. You know, he's like, one little ship did this. You know, he stood there and like not understanding, because it shows you what the problem is, and that is the empire is starting to grow too strong to where they don't think of anything as a possible threat.
Too big. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Look, White Chocolate Espresso actually brings up here 28 actors who appeared in Game of Thrones also appeared in Star Wars properties, which is crazy to think about. 2 of the Game of Thrones actors are an actor in Andor. So, Ross, I know you know one. I don't know any, but
I know both. One's a dead giveaway though.
well, he said that the one doesn't show up to season 5, so I still have time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when I see that, I'll know. But that's cool. I mean, same type of genre, you know. But no, Luthen's ship was amazing. It ranks up there. I have to re-rank my ships now. To be truly
I mean,
honest,
it was
like
it
it
went
was
to a
that
totally
badass.
different level.
Like, yeah, I have to re-rank.
Well, I
them
love the
because-
AI about it. Like, I love having that whole, you know, a whole other being to talk to that, you know, is the ship. You know, because I felt like they were trying to do that with, oh God, what was L337 on the Millennium Falcon and the
Yeah,
Solo movie?
when they
You know, like they were
uploaded
trying to
to
do a
the
little bit of this and a little bit of
mainframe,
that.
yeah.
But to hear like the actual computer talking back and like making logical conversations with Luthen is pretty badass.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm loving Andor. We have a finale next week. This seemed kind of lackluster for a penultimate, to be truly honest with you. But we have another season. We have a finale next week. We're going to see if they step it up or if they really blow us away.
This week coming up, they start production on season 2.
Okay. We know it's coming. So as soon as I see the first day in the books, I know it's a real thing.
21st, baby, 21st.
First day in the books. That's all I need to say. So, y'all have anything else you want to say about Andor?
I'm just, you know, I just can't wait to see what's going to happen, you know, for the
finale.
I guess the finale, because it's been such a build up, and it's taken a lot. It's for me to engage, because it's like one of those things. It's kind of like you know what happens, but you want to see how it builds up.
Right.
And like I said, and I finally have gotten those stakes I think I was missing in the beginning. So it's just gonna be really interesting to see how they leave it, you know, trying to go into the second season. Because I was, you know, you hear there was, you know, multiple seasons they'd already, you know, talked about anyway. I'm like, well, how are you gonna, you know, draw this out? So this is gonna be interesting, especially being around, you know, with Cassian Andor. It's like, how are you gonna? Let's see how we build this up. So I'm looking forward to it, 100%.
I think that I may rewatch this show like on Thanksgiving. There's gonna be plenty of things to do, but like throughout the day, maybe I'll put it on, like have it on, you know, before like football and stuff comes on. But I don't know, Thursday, maybe Friday. I think I'm gonna watch the whole entire thing before I watch the final episode.
Just try to get back up to speed, see what it's like in case you miss anything. And
yeah,
makes sense.
Because I would love to binge most of this stuff. The problem is that when I hear that it comes out, I'm like, oh, I want to watch that, and I don't like waiting.
Yeah.
I'm pretty well trained in like my adult years to be very patient when it comes to a lot of things. But when it comes to like things that I want to watch, I'm like, oh no, I want to go watch it.
Now.
So, yep.
Well, and that's the problem with, you know, things come out the way they are right now. Like I said, I know a lot of people, Andor has bad reviews, but it's quite honestly one of the best Star Wars shows I've ever seen.
Well, it's a
I know
different
a lot of
form
people
of
are not
Star
watching it
Wars.
because they want to see, you know, the whole thing. So I get it.
A lot of people have been like, I really think that coming on the back end of COVID and the way that we used to stream stuff when HBO was giving us movies on HBO and the movie theater the same day, you know, I think that a lot of stuff has changed since then. A lot of people have really change how they're like taking in content. So it is what it is. I mean, streaming has been an evolution the whole entire time since it's been out. So let's see what it does.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm fully on board with watching it. You know, I love the Star Wars content. Star Wars television is the best of they've given us in the era, and you know that I'm not saying that there are not great things that I like about sequel trilogy, and I'm not saying that there aren't like animated. I mean, like, dude, I mean, like, they're coming at you on many different fronts, and I enjoy a lot of it. But the Marvel television stuff is definitely fantastic. So I'm all for this. I'm all for, February is Mandalorian 3. We're just going to be hit over the head before long, but, with all the different shows, and I'm ready for it. If Andor is any sign of what they're doing, hell. Like,
hell yeah. I agree. Hell yeah.
Even with the little stuff that I know about Acolyte, I've tried not to dwell too far into that, but you start getting cast listings and you start getting, plot devices that they're talking about putting in, and I'm like, I didn't even want that show, but give it to me.
Well, we got anything else?
Only one more show.
One more show, but Sarah's not watching the show. Peripheral.
No,
I'm telling you, Sarah. You know what though? I would rather you watch Game of Thrones than Peripheral.
Greg, I'm so excited. You're excited about Game of Thrones. I haven't seen you this excited in so long.
Like, seriously, I haven't been this excited about something. Like, I can't lie. Like, all day long today, it's all I've thought about for like 3 or 4 days. All I've thought about is Game of Thrones. Like, the books, the movies, the shows, everything else. It's been nothing but Game of Thrones. When I leave here,
fantastic.
Guess what I'm going to do? Watch some Game of Thrones. Like, I am that excited about it. Yes, it is crazy that I am, and you're right. I agree. It's fun. It's fun to be that excited about something new.
I may have to watch Game of Thrones.
You should. You should. I'm telling you. Like, you'll start the first season, and then, like, before you know it, the first season's done, and you're like, wait a second, that's the whole first season for real? Like, that's it? Cool. I'll watch 2.
I'm only going to ask you one question before we have to start moving on to the next thing, and that is, did you like the season finale or the penultimate better in season 1?
Penultimate.
Yeah.
100%, yeah.
Okay.
Episode 9, I know I've heard from Game of Thrones fans, episode 9 is the best episode of every season, or the penultimate is the best episode. And at least in season 1, yeah, 100%. Let's put it this way. I knew Game of Thrones had stakes, okay? And I knew certain characters in Game of Thrones. After the penultimate, I was like, I've got to watch the finale. There's no way I can't watch the finale after seeing what I just saw. I've got to watch the finale.
Imagine waiting a week.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to imagine that. I want to imagine
you're sitting
right
there
effing now.
And you're like, is winter fucking coming? Because I don't know anymore.
When? Yes.
I'm not sure.
That is the advantage that I have right now. Like I said, is being able to actually watch that. And I can watch the whole thing, whole story right now. So,
yep.
Well, Sarah, do you want to get out of here before we get onto Peripheral?
Yeah, fellas, let me jump. We got a big long karate day tomorrow, so we'll see how it goes. The little one, she's gonna get her not her full green belt, but she'll get her like her first green belt. So
yeah, that's what's up. Well, best of luck, and where can they find you at?
Well, I guess you can still find me on Twitter for as long as it stays up.
Don't worry. In 6 months, Twitter will still be here, and we'll all be tweeting things. Don't worry.
It's like Y2K all over again. That's what it feels like. It feels like Y2K all over again. But yeah, you can find me at My Lady Kitten. You can find me on the TikTok. You can find me on Instagram. I mean, I'm around. I'm here.
I get around.
Not too much, but just a little bit.
I was gonna start singing that song too.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. You have a good evening, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Sarah, thank you so much. I will
All right, bye, guys.
Right. One more show, Peripheral, and I'm not gonna lie. This one kind of confused me. This is, like you said, this is a show that I feel like if I could watch the whole thing as like a movie, I would get it a lot better. Maybe it's because I'm watching a lot of things right now and I'm really focused on Game of Thrones. I've had Black Panther come out. I'm watching all my other shows. plus work and life and everything else. But this show, this week at least, it was hard to not like pause it and be like, okay, how much is left? How much is left? You know, I don't know why. Like, I really like the show, but it just this week really got me for some reason.
Yeah, I can't argue. I didn't worry about like the time, but I think that I was always. I've been trying to figure out the thing that is stopping me from really truly enjoying this show, because I like a lot of the things. I think they have us on a drip feed of information and what they're trying to do.
Right.
I don't like the tempo. I don't like the speed at which they're trying to progress the actual story along, because the story itself is really good. I like the characters. I like the actors who play these characters. I like the premise. There's so much about the show that I like, but the tempo is not one of them.
Right.
Well, you can't cuss without saying the actual name of the title, but the name of the title was "Fuck You and Eat Shit." And
Yeah.
when I read that, I was like, "What are we doing now? Like where can we possibly go that's weirder than where we've been?" The show opens up with that scene that they had from last week's episode. I think it was last week's episode, where Alita saw for the very first time the haptic and how it went back in time, and how they were actually trying to make, how they were trying to dumb down 2099 tech for the 2030 era. Right. This was, I have it written down. What is it? 2028. There goes that scene with the trap dog. And so it starts off with everyone, all these guys in this unit, one of the first, I'm assuming, first haptic units of the Marines, where they're trying to fight a war with Texas. So it seemed like there was a whole lot of, like it was the second Civil War of some sort, which is not that far off. But long story short, you get Connor. There's too many Connors, too many of the same names in the things that we watch.
Connor's,
I believe his name is Connor.
The black guy without the
triple
leg,
amputee.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
And so Connor was the one that went in, and then you saw something that was really real, and that was that they had put a bomb in an animal. And I knew that was what was going to happen. I thought it was going to be either triggered, but it was very much Joker-esque. It was very much Dark Knight, and it was putting the bomb directly inside.
Real.
Yeah,
very fucking real too. Look, man.
So I don't like. You play to people's. I want to say strengths, but you play to people's hearts when you start messing with shit like this.
Well, okay, like I was in the Army. I've never been in a situation like that. But I can't imagine what it would be like. You know me, Ross. I'm a dog lover.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm that guy. I'm that guy who's going out there to save that dog. And I'm probably going to get it blown up. But, like, it's not just with dogs. Like, kids. All kinds of stuff. Like, most people don't realize what the real world is like the real world, and it's great that people can be sheltered from that kind of thing, but the real world is raw. It's tough. There are evil people in the world that do evil things, and there are people that have to stop those evil people. Like, it's a perfect ploy for anybody who has a heart.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to say that, because then I say that people who don't react on that don't have a heart. I don't want to say that. People that think heart over mind, I guess. Well, because none of them are wrong. There's absolutely no way you, like, if I'm in that situation, like I said, I'm that guy who probably goes for that dog, but I know in my mind there's absolutely no way I should be doing this. For any reason whatsoever, this is obviously a trap. There's no way I come out of this alive. Like, but once again, I'm still that guy who probably goes and tries to save the dog. So,
That's what the term battle hardened comes from. Like it's how much of humanity has been sucked out of you, because truly, in order to become a machine and to do things without questioning, means that you've had a certain amount of like empathy sucked out of your life.
Right.
And one of the main problems with like today's society is people lacking empathy in the right places. Whereas you can sit there and say that, you feel it towards animals and you feel it towards, things that seem natural. It's tough for this current day and age that like a lot of adults feel empathy for other adults, regardless of
Yes.
any of their choices, right?
Yes.
And so when you turn around and say that you get back to the basics, the simplistic, the building blocks of empathy, it comes to animals and children. So yeah, like it's ugly. You're right. Like the real truth about it is that there are times and places in real life where shit like this happens, and they're not wrong in showing it. It sucks seeing it, and it sucks knowing that like that's how Connor actually came out, to be a triple amputee. Yeah. And then not only that, but you see the PTSD like on his face. We got to see an equally weird scene, but I found it very interesting. And that was the fact that, I don't remember the guy's name who won the lottery.
I know you're talking about though. Yeah. One of the guys in their group. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's sitting in Burton's little camper, and he's saying like, just let me do it again. Let me help you out. And what he is essentially saying is that, through the haptic, he's able to take some of those memories and drain them off of Connor.
Right.
And he relives those memories. But what he's doing is essentially siphoning Connor's pain out of his brain for him. Like he's trying to take some of that. I don't know what the positive and negative of that is. I don't know if he's able to just take it out and like Connor no longer has to deal with it, because it felt like they were trying to show a scene where Connor was comatose for like a little bit. So I didn't really know. I don't know the extent of that, but it was an interesting scene. It was interesting that they could do that with the haptic, because it definitely feels like they're given this tool that they have no true understanding about, and that they are slowly learning about it as time goes on. Because whoever has given it to them through the military, whoever found out about that gave it to the military, they clearly don't know enough about it to know all of its uses, I guess is the best way to put it.
Right.
Tommy was a real big person in this episode. We get to see him post-explosion. We get to see him trying to deal with his girlfriend after, going through some almost like a VR head scan of him trying to like, what was he like chasing a dot or something on a VR headset. You see him losing his stuff there. You see him losing his stuff back in the sheriff's office. You see him talking to the sheriff and the crappers, and they're, trying to wipe the blood off his face still, and the sheriff's tell him to go home. And then he has that pivotal moment where he sees a sheriff's shoes, and it's like that was the person that was at that crime scene when his car got wrecked. And then you see him you see him show up to Burton's place and trying to talk to Burton. And I felt that it was very much like, why wouldn't Burton take his help? Like at this point, I guess because he is the law is what it comes down to.
Right. I think that if you involve him, then you involve certain rules that you have to have with whatever you're doing. As long as he doesn't involve him, then he can do basically whatever he wants to do.
So it seems,
and act oblivious to the law. It's the only kind of mindset I have with that. Beyond that, you're right. I don't know why he wouldn't include him.
Yeah, it seems like if you want an ally, like he's already willing to play ball. He knows a lot already.
Well, beyond the fact that he knows a lot and that he can help you, like he's involved. Like his life is at stake too.
That's what I'm saying.
Like his life is on the line, so he deserves to know what's going on and how I can protect myself. It's a very interesting situation, man. Same with Bob.
Yeah,
like Bob's a badass, dude. Bob is a badass.
Bob is a badass. In this episode, Bob was put on a shock collar.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. But that whole scene with the fish tank, I don't think that's how electricity works.
Well, it's how movie electricity works.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It worked about as well as the Andor shocking floor worked for me.
Right,
So I
right.
was trying to make sense of it. I'm like, I don't think that's gonna work.
Don't get me wrong. As soon as he mentioned the fish tank and they started talking about it, I knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, I know where this is going. So,
but
I
what
get
I
that.
really would have enjoyed is that he would have done something different. Like I really would
Yeah.
have loved the misdirection in that scene. Like he's going to break the fish tank. He's going to try to just get the water on the floor. He's going to try to, give me an image that I've seen in countless other things. I wish that he would have done something different.
Yeah.
That would have been a perfect time for it.
I think that's the easy thing for the audience to understand.
Yeah.
Like people know that electricity and water don't mix. They know that whenever you mix water with electricity, it's either going to A, malfunction, or B, shoot electricity everywhere that touches water. So people understand that. Put it there because people understand that. You don't have to explain it. So I think that was the key with that. And then I guess the last thing that I have to say about this episode is like, is the future not real? Like, is it's real? They exist in it, but the life they have is a projection. Like, it's made to look good.
I get what you're saying now. Because one of the biggest problems I have paying attention to the show is that I don't understand what the future is.
Right.
And because now they're playing with the past, and when you play with the past, we get into Greg's favorite subject of time travel and how it can be easily screwed up by the most simplistic things. But what you're getting to is the actual point where they have the people and they have the buildings. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So I think what they're trying to do is, if it is truly true that all these people died in the jackpot with all the things that happened, billions of people died, like almost life on the planet is about wiped out.
Right. 6 billion out of 7. Yeah.
Or 8 or 9, like who knows? We just passed 8, like I said.
We just passed 8 the other day, yeah.
So when you start having the conversation of what could be real at that point in time, like you just can't turn around and like mass breed society. There's not going to be like an influx in people.
Right.
So I think what they're trying to do is make things seem better than they are.
Right.
What I don't understand is the hierarchy of the social structure. I know that they have talked about, there's the Research Institute and the 2 other governing bodies, or 2 other bodies that are truly at work here to make the 3-tiered structure that holds the world up at this point in time. What I find difficult to believe is that it makes a big difference to create this augmented reality that people live in, right, to see the buildings that they haven't restored yet. I don't think that's necessary. And so what the intriguing part of it is to me is, why is it necessary? And what are we going to see? What are we going to do that's actually going to give us a reason to make this worthwhile?
No, I agree with you. And that's kind of my thing too, is I think that the entire kind of MacGuffin of this show is that everything in the future people see is not what it seems. It's being projected as what they ideally would think it would be, Yeah. And now you see in this episode that even Wolf knows that this and this and this aren't real. This and this may be, but this and this and this aren't real. And this is how they project it so that we feel better about it. Well, it's like, well, if that's the case, then what stops them from telling you anything and you believing it and making you feel better? And I think that's the point we're getting to.
I don't understand how the social ladder works, because when you take away the consumers in an environment, then there's much more resources. There are many more resources to be had for the few. So when you take away the people that are actually consuming them, if you take away billions of people, then how are the rich rich? Like, how is not everyone rich?
Right.
Like how, that's what I don't understand. So there has to be some other thing. I think that like you said, the MacGuffin, the big thing here has to be what is making the societal structure of the future be either combative or be, hard to understand, or like what is happening. And so I think that I felt like I've kind of dived far enough into the Alita story to understand that her whole point of getting Burton, and by that I mean Flynn, involved was to kind of to break whatever smoke screen that there is existing in the future. And so that seems like where we're at. The only other thing that there really was the cop is now involved, Lobier, the constable. And, she's trying to come on the scene looking like a major badass and how she understands how the world works. And apparently, like, the fact that she's higher up in the upper echelons of being a cop,
constable ranks, yeah,
she knows, like, she's able to depict, like, they're almost making Batman is what they're doing. They're making detective work seem like a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And so this woman is a superpower being because she is a superpower detective, almost, is what they're kind of telling us. And once again, it adds more shit that I don't understand. I'm trying to like parse it all out, but man, like I feel like I start getting a grasp on something and they throw something else completely at me and I'm like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So
this is a show that I think once the finale comes out, I've been watching it weekly, but once the finale comes out, I think I want to rewatch the entire thing to see if I get a better grasp on what's going on. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things that, like, I have to watch the refresher every week to remind me of what's happening. And maybe it's because I watch so much stuff, and that could be part of it. But, like, this show is one of those things, like, if you miss a little part of it, it's a major part. Like, it's confusing. Like, you need to know what happened. Like, you need to pay attention to the entire show to find out what is going on. And
I feel like I've been on my back foot ever since the show came out. That's what I feel like. Like, it's they caught me trying to understand it, and I didn't at that point in time, and I've been lacking ever since.
Right. The thing is, though, it's interesting enough that I want to. Like, I want to figure out what's going on with it. And that's a good thing about the show is, like, a lot of times if there's something this confusing, I would be like, fuck it. I don't want to watch it. But I kind of want to know what happens here. I have a good enough grasp on what's going on that, like, even if I don't figure it all out, I can piece it together. Or at least piece it together in my mind enough where I know what's happening. And I'm happy with the story. So,
but that's it. They show up in London at the end.
Yeah,
we have 2 more episodes to figure out what's going to happen for this season, and that's I'm assuming. I would say almost undoubtedly there's going to be a second season. I've heard nothing about it though.
I'll say I haven't heard anything about it either. Like, honestly, like I've asked people about the show and nobody even knows what it is. And maybe it's the fault of Amazon for not promoting their shows enough. Because, like I said, Amazon has some really good stuff, but I mean, you got to get people watching your stuff regularly, or you're not going to have these shows like this that are good shows that have merit that you should watch in people's minds. Like when Netflix tells me watch this next, I usually let it play at least one episode and watch this next to see.
Amazon is an e-commerce company that treats streaming as a hobby.
That's exactly what it is. They make all their money shipping. Like, it is a hobby, like, to them, to be truly honest with you. What Netflix makes billions of dollars a year off of is a hobby for Amazon. Okay? So just keep that in mind with big conglomerates and huge.
So when you're done, when you're done watching Game of Thrones, you can head over there and go watch The Expanse.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. I'll try to do it. Yeah. If I can get Ashley into it, man, like I said, it'll be on the TV till it's over. So.
You may be able to.
I probably will. We'll see. That's it, man. That's all I got.
Yep.
Nothing else. You want to go and get out of here?
Let's do it, man.
Cool. Well, Ross, they can find you here, correct?
Only here.
Only here. You can find me.
Never on the Twitter sphere.
That's right. Well, and there are people who are saying Twitter's not going to be around in 6 months, and I'll tweet y'all in 6 months.
Yeah.
It'll be around.
It'll be around.
It'll be around. It may be different, but it'll be around, and you'll be on it. So don't worry. But you can find me at the Bat Daddy 52 on Twitter. It's my personal handle. Check out at GCS Podcast 1 is the show handle. We're here live every Friday night on YouTube, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, unless otherwise specified. Beyond that, you can find all the shows on any podcatcher of your choice. I usually upload it Sunday mornings, Saturday mornings, or Friday nights immediately after we do the show. So we'll see how I feel. Beyond that,
in between Game of Thrones episodes now.
That's right. Beyond that, give us a like, give us a review, give us a share, tell a friend, come on the show, check us out. If you comment in the show, I'll make you part of the show and I'll include you in it. We'll see what happens. But beyond that, that's all I got, man. So I guess until next week, keep pounding.